Very good. Welcome tonight. I'd like to call the Finance Committee to order, and I want to acknowledge our City Manager, Eric Hansen, our Assistant City Manager, Jennifer Heft, our Law Director, Jeff Forbes, is here with us, and certainly our additional committee members, Mayor Kathy Grossman and Council Member Tony Bradburn are with us. We're certainly interested in picking back up where we left off in terms of meeting the needs of Mason small businesses. And let me just say that we're committed to the idea that we need to do all that we can to help Mason small businesses where they're at, both immediately with what we can do immediately, and both in a longer term projection. You know, where are we going to be as businesses come back online, and how do we help in the recovery effort as we come back to work, and where do we really go as a community as we reach out into the future, and we need to look at all those things. But I did want to mention that I was able to sit in, or at least tune into a Ohio House 2020 Economic Recovery Task Force meeting that was just held last Thursday, April 8th. Actually, it was held. And they had Mike Venerable, who is a Mason resident. He's the CEO of Cincy Tech USA, and he talked to the Ohio House about what it's going to take to bring Ohio back online and bring some recovery. And he talked about the new normal. You know, what's the new normal for Ohio going to look like as we come back together? I thought it was interesting. He mentioned that none of us are immune from a 10 to 15% drop in gross domestic product, and he said that's really the issue. How do we adjust to this new normal, and where are we heading as we come out of this? He mentioned that if there's a silver lining, and it's hard to say there's a silver lining in any of this, but he said it's forcing us to look at technology, to learn new ways of doing things, and that understanding how technology can help us is going to help us to come out of this more successful in the future. And I would just say that probably the best ideas of tomorrow are born out of the crisis that we face today. But we all have to evaluate where we're at today and how do we sustain ourselves as we come together. Certainly want to remind everyone of the Federal Recovery Program, the CARES Act program, and hoping everyone is tapping into the benefits that are available under that program. As they come online, I'm certainly believing and hopeful and optimistic that those benefits are going to come together. As I understand, initially $350 billion was allocated by the federal government. That is really being exhausted, and another $250 billion, I believe, is going to be infused into that program. We need to make sure that Mason businesses are capturing all that they can of that. But the question for us tonight, I think, is where do we go right now to help Mason small businesses come forward in terms of meeting immediate needs that are out there until that federal program money can flow into their hands. And as I mentioned earlier, there's $10,000 available to every small business that applies under the CARES Act. You know, if 500 small businesses in Mason apply for that, that's $5 million of money, certainly much more money than we could ever provide. But I wanted to I've asked Eric if he could look into what some of our surrounding communities are doing and give us a picture of how other communities in our area are helping out where they can. And Eric, let me turn this over to you and ask you what you were able to find out in terms of how people are being helped.
Yep. This is just a snapshot. Some have more detail than others, but it kind of gives you a sense of some of the other things going on. Columbia Township is providing a total of $55,000 through the CIC of Greater Cincinnati. $40,000 of that is earmarked to 10 previously identified restaurants. $10,000 is available as additional hardship grants for other businesses. And then there is an administrative expense for the CIC to administer it. Lebanon is pursuing a program providing a total of $40,000 through an existing small business program. Those are forgivable loans up to $2,000 per business, and businesses with 5 employees or less are the priority. the intent there is to retain their staffing levels. City of Hamilton, I think we've discussed that previously, $300,000 total through their Economic Development Commission. They are doing an advance purchase of gift cards to local businesses. The businesses apply, the eligible businesses will have gift cards that are purchased by the HEDC, and then those are intended to be set aside and then resold at a later date to recoup some of the expense of the $300,000. I don't have specifics from the city of Blue Ash, but what I understand is they, in their Summit Park, they have some restaurants as tenants that have closed, and they are giving rent rebates of some magnitude to those restaurants that are there, that are actually the city's tenants. Troy, Ohio, it appears that they're working with their chamber with a program. I'm not sure the funding sources necessarily, but providing grants up to $2,500 to businesses in conjunction with the chamber as a short-term funding gap for operating expenses, and then with a pay it forward component of that in the future, that the businesses would try and reimburse that through gift cards or payments. And theirs is for businesses with no more than 50 employees. It appears that the city itself is providing a 3-month deferral to those businesses that had SDBG loans. Again, I'm not sure the division of the expense there. Springboro, looks like with their chamber is doing an emergency stimulus program. Again, I don't have complete details on the magnitude here, but it sounds like up to $5,000 of capital funding. And then they have a requirement there that the receiving businesses have to honor future gift certificates that would be produced by their chamber. Then we did look at Fairfield. They are doing, appears more of a marketing piece, taking video tours of some of the smaller businesses in the community, and then residents that visit those businesses, patronize those businesses, and save the receipts or email the receipts to the city or entered into a drawing for gift certificates. Again, no dollar amount identified on that.
Very good. I don't know if Mayor Grossman, Councilmember Bradburn, either one of you have any thoughts, comments you wanted to make before? Mayor Grossman.
Hi, thank you. I actually do have something to add to that. I'm glad you asked that. I'll go ahead and share this now. I was going to bring it up in the meeting next as well. And this is hot off the press. It is actually not off the press at all. Trustee Lutz Heading sent this to me. It's a work in progress. It's a county-wide effort. I mentioned it at our committee meeting, I guess last week, about the Warren County Foundation and some other Warren County resources that are working to put together some relief for small business community. And so I can describe it like this. I didn't want to email it to our city manager yet because it's not ready to be a public document. It's still a draft. But the gist of it is this: an effort is underway in Warren County to aid small businesses as they plan ahead to reopen for business. Deerfield Township, Warren County Port Authority, Warren County Small Business Development Alliance, Warren County Foundation Area Progress Council are seeking to create a crowdsourcing fund that would solicit donations from large corporations to support small businesses in Warren County, as well as tapping into resident engagement through increased public outreach. So I hope that we can learn more about that in the coming days and that we can participate if we are able.
Good, very good. Councilmember Bradburn, any?
Just briefly, I have reviewed the City of Lebanon's application submission. Obviously, they did put a cap on it. They kind of drilled down on just 5 full-time employees or full-time equivalents of that. So they have a program, and they're hoping to be able to help their small businesses just as we're hoping to be able to help ours with. From what I've heard, it's like the issue of a cash flow issue in the beginning until the federal money hopefully can start coming in. I don't know how to resolve the issue of people not coming in. I think for some, unfortunately, especially the restaurant business is really tough when you consider that there's still going to be the seating issue, the distancing issue. And I think some people I've talked to and some articles I've read is it's going to change. It's going to change for probably a while until there's either a treatment or a vaccine. And you're going to have a lot of people that are going to be hesitant to go to basically mass meetings or mass crowds. So, hopefully we can go help provide some type of a bridge until some of the federal money kicks in, and we'll just take it from there. That's all we can do. Thank you.
Very good. Thanks for that information. Eric, I did want to ask you about the Hamilton gift card program in terms of how big Hamilton is versus how big Mason is, and how that all came together, if you know. And you're on mute, Eric, if you want to. You're muted.
Sorry.
There you go.
And I didn't hear the last part of what you said. I'm sorry.
I was interested to know if you had any information on how big the size of Hamilton is versus the size of Mason, and how that all came together.
Yes, you did. I apologize. You asked for some population figures. Hamilton, and obviously population estimates different, but kind of using a common benchmark rounding. Hamilton has a population of about 62,000 residents. Consider Mason, we generally use about 32,000, and the census will probably, enlighten all of us with some more current numbers when it comes out. Lebanon is around 20,000. Springboro about 19,000. Fairfield is also around 62,000.
And you talked about Fairfield, but did you were you able to figure out what Fairfield
They were the
had
ones
done?
doing kind of a marketing piece, video tours, and there was no dollar amount associated.
So I don't know how the other members of council feel. Certainly believe we need to do something to help in the immediate situation of helping the small businesses in Mason that are out there. I think the chamber initially came to us and said, do something like they did in Hamilton with a gift card program. I'm inclined to say that it's a good mechanism to immediately cash infuse needy businesses where we can in Mason. And I don't know if other members of the committee have any thoughts, but my thought would be that we could do something along those lines in terms of reaching out. So if I look at what they did, it's $300,000 for 60,000 people. We have a little bit less population-wise than that, but if we did something on a comparative basis, I'm thinking maybe about $160,000 might be the right number to see if the CDC is interested in going out to actually purchase gift cards from the businesses that might need it. That would give them some at least cash infusion now that they could use, and then we could see how the federal program comes together in terms of bringing them additional dollars through the CARES Act. And we have some other opportunities probably to help them out into the future. But I think we need maybe to do something immediately to help them where we can. And I'd be inclined to recommend we do a gift card program. I think we already have Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we already have a gift card program in Mason. Perhaps we supplement it by way of a additional $160,000 that somebody, the city of Mason, or if the CDC is interested in serving as an agent for the city, going out and making those purchases from needy businesses. Could that work?
It depends on certainly the city gift card. Consider the city, it's called the YIFTY gift card program, uses an app that isn't prepaid gift card specific to a business. I think of it, not their words, more like a prepaid credit card that can be used at multiple businesses, participating businesses.
So the businesses aren't currently receiving those dollars. It's not until the gift card is used that they actually receive the cash from that program.
Exactly. I go buy a
Oh.
gift card and I can use it or give it to someone to use it. Close to 30 businesses now.
And
Once
when-
they
when
use
they
it like a MasterCard transaction,
then they receive payment. And yeah, so that's not as immediate. I'm suggesting, I think that we provide some cash, $160,000 of cash that can get immediately out into the community to help where it can. And I don't know if, Mary Grossman, I see your hand. Do you have some
Yeah.
thoughts?
Yes, okay. So it sounds like what you're saying is this would be not, well, I'm not sure if we can do it the same way through the Nifty Yifty, but we would ask that the CDC manage the project. And would you do an application process like they did in Hamilton?
That's a good question. I think we've heard from the chamber that they have some idea of who out there needs funding, and perhaps we will rely on them to bring us that information of how best to meet the needs that are in the community.
Follow-up question. So we can do something, completely separate from the Nifty Yifty. But let's say we have people purchase, we have the CDC or however we do it, purchase gift cards. And what would we do to mitigate problems if for some reason, unfortunately, a business might go out of existence and not be able to honor the gift card? Is there a strategy you've got in mind for that?
I would think if that happened, that the city would step in and do something to either move that gift card to a different business, an existing business that could actually service it, or reimburse that expense, or find. I think we could find some way to deal with that situation if it arises.
What would we do with the gift cards that are purchased through this program?
I would suggest they be delivered back to the city to decide how best to distribute them and what to do with them. That's a good question.
Okay.
Councilmember Bradburn, I don't know if you have any thoughts.
Sorry, I got unmuted. Yeah, the Hamilton program sounds like a reasonable program. The Lebanon program, I think some of the criteria is maybe it's a little too small as far as number of employees that I've seen. Obviously, I don't think I'm not aware that we're running any city property for restaurants like Blue Ash is doing. And it does seem as though that when I heard from the one from Columbia Township and the one from Lebanon, it seems like they kind of set maybe a top dollar amount per business. I know Lebanon's 2,000. What was Columbia? Was Columbia 5, Eric?
55.
55. Okay. So there, I guess that's up to the chamber if they go ahead and purchase these cards to go ahead and equitably based upon need. And I'm sure there's probably some businesses who are going to say, hey, we're fine. We're going to get through it and, go down to the next person. And we appreciate that. So the bottom line is, I think the Hamilton program, as it's been explained to me now, probably allays some of my concerns. And, I don't have a problem with that. No.
And so the way I see that we could do that immediately is we have ordinance 2020-43 on the table currently. I think we could bring that off the table and propose an amendment to it that would direct the implementation of a gift card program like Hamilton did, probably at $160,000 level, and put that into effect so that it can get out into the community and be helpful to meet needs today. As I said, I think, I am optimistic. I'm hopeful the CARES Act is going to come through with substantial help to the Mason small businesses, certainly more help than we can provide. But I think this is a quick way to get at least some initial money out into the community to meet existing needs as they're out there and to help people. I think the real struggle for all of us is how do we get over the hump and get to the point where the CARES Act program has brought funds that we need and more than that, how do we get back to work and begin to recover as our economy as a whole? So I see it as a stepping stone process. And I think this is probably a good first step to at least get us to a point where we've got some dollars flowing down into the community. And I will probably bring that recommendation to council tonight as we have our meeting. And I will ask for any final comments if anybody has any as we wrap up here. Mayor Grossman, any final comments?
I was going through all the documents that I have on this, and I remember from the very first communication we got from the CDC, they said something like, if you choose a gift card and program. So it sounded like it might be something they would be willing to do.
And I don't know the answer to that. I think we should reach out to them and ask them if they'd be interested in serving as our agent. If they don't want to do that, certainly then the city would figure out some way to do it ourselves. But that certainly would be helpful if they would step in and take that responsibility.
Okay, thanks.
Tony, any final comments from?
No, hold on. I don't know if I got.
You're good.
I'm good. Okay. No, and obviously, this is a small, short bridge. Hopefully the federal money kicks in. But I think we need to be very cognizant of the fact that the bottom line is we can't create demand in some of these stores. Not a fault of the city, but the bottom line is people have to be willing to come out and socialize. And at this point in time, they're doing it at a distance. And I know I had a little doctor's appointment today, and it was a whole different experience. I was at group health at the rec center, and it's a questionnaire, have your temperature taken, and then okay, you can go sit down over here, and the doctor will see you. So it's different, and a lot of things are going to be different, and we're just going to have to get through it as best we can.
Very good. With that, I will call our committee meeting to a close. And Eric, I'll get to use some language I have prepared on a proposed amendment to 2020-43 that I'd ask you to distribute to members of council as we step into the next council meeting.
Okay. As soon as I get it. Okay. Hey, Jason, I think we need to break from this meeting and then prep for the council meeting.
Will do. Just for the record, there's no way to not send everybody's microphones to the stream. So anything said on Zoom will be also on the stream. But they won't necessarily see everybody's face.
Oh, right. Okay.
Can you guys hear me? Is my sound on? Thank you.
Uh,
Mayor? I believe we have everyone here, so I think Jason just needs the word.
Okay, everybody ready? I think I'm ready. Okay, sure.
Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Jason. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the City of Mason a la Zoom style. It is April 13th, our 7 p.m. regular business meeting. I'm here to call us to order. Eric, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Nelson,
Here.
Councilmember Chance,
Here.
Councilmember Bradburn,
Present.
Councilmember Stricula,
Here.
Vice Mayor Gilb,
Here.
Councilmember Hunterlaw,
Here.
Mayor Grossman.
Here. Okay, we're going to start with an invocation and then we'll go straight into some other items on our agenda. Vice Mayor Gill, would you please open us up in prayer?
Certainly, I want to share a prayer that someone forwarded to me today that I thought was appropriate, and goes like this. It says, Lord, we're thankful that you can take the hardest circumstances and turn them around for your good and your glory. You can restore all things. So we're asking you to restore lost jobs, finances, relationships, resources, and hopes. Show anyone struggling financially that you hold them close. Surround them with people who will help them. Meet their immediate needs as they trust you for long-term solutions. Turn fear into faith as your good plans for them unfold. As they wait on you, renew their hope and give them the courage to dream again. Remind them of their value and fill them with your peace. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. Amen. That was great. Before we talk about the minutes, I realized that in this unusual time of scheduling Zoom meetings, we did not include old and new business. Is there someone who could make the motion to add old and new business as the final item of our agenda?
Make that motion.
Second.
Thank you. All right. Now we need to talk about item 3 on the agenda. We need to motion to approve the minutes from the
Mayor.
March. Yes.
I'm sorry, that was a motion and a second, but you'll need to vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. A roll call. Excuse me. I was looking at my notes. Okay, please call the roll.
Councilmember Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn,
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb,
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw,
Yes.
Mayor Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson.
Yes.
Okay, now we're going to deal with item 3, the minutes. I need a motion to approve the minutes for the March 9th council meeting. March 28th special meeting, March 30th work session, April 1st special meeting, and the April 3rd special meeting. And I believe we we need to separate some of those. We had a couple of absences. How do you want to do that? Can we bundle it, or do we need to itemize?
Jeff? You're on mute.
Thank you. I suppose if you think people may be abstaining for certain sets of minutes, then we may need to do them independently.
Okay, we'll do that. So bear with me. I need a motion to approve the minutes from the March 9th council meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Anyone need to abstain? Okay, we need a motion to approve the minutes from March 28th special meeting.
Mayor, I actually have a correction on those minutes. It says the meeting was called to order at 5:05 PM. I believe it was called to order at 11:05 AM.
Good call. You're right. That's true. There is a typo in the minutes on timing.
I don't know how, I mean,
We can take care of that.
okay, thanks.
Okay, where were we? That was March 28th. Do we have a motion and a second to approve the meeting minutes for March 28th?
I'll make that
the
motion.
Second,
Great. All in favor?
Yes.
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 Any opposed? Vice Mayor Gill?
I'd like to, well, I wasn't able to attend that meeting. I'd like to abstain from the approval on those minutes.
Thank you. Okay, I need a motion to approve the minutes from the March 30th work session.
I'll make them.
Second?
Second.
Any second? Thank you. All
Second.
in favor?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Opposed?
Mayor, again, I'd like to abstain from that meeting also.
Thank you. I need a motion to approve the minutes from the April 1st special meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? I need a motion to approve the minutes for the April 3rd special meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
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 Great. Right, it's time for our city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just had a couple of items. One fun item. This past weekend, we had a new style Easter egg hunt throughout the community. There were 112 families that completed that hunt. They were led to different sites in the city using social distancing by 7 clues. I could maybe give the hardest clue that we got the most struggles on was a clue for the roundabout on Mason Road by alluding to something that was built 10 years ago, and you shouldn't stay there too long or you'll get dizzy. I think folks were looking at parks, but it was the roundabout. 112 families completed the hunt. All of the participants will receive a $25 Yifty gift card to participating businesses here in Mason. And there were 5 golden egg winners that were drawn randomly from those 112 families. They will receive the grand prize of a $100 gift card for each of those families to take advantage of Mason businesses. I want to announce those winners here via our Zoom meeting. Not sure if they're watching, but Kristen Curtis, her family is getting a gift card along with Angie Goldschmidt, Karen Rainsberg, Joy Strandcar, and Nikki Thompson were our 5 grand prize golden egg winners. So want to congratulate them, and we will be making arrangements to get them their gift cards as well as the other 112 families that participated. And that, I just wanted to remind folks, I know council's aware of this, but the Yifty gift card is serving a couple of needs. It's a long time ambition we had to kind of focus some of our marketing efforts with Mason businesses. And certainly in these times, it allows us a way to direct some activity to businesses that otherwise are suffering. How the gift cards work, And anyone can go online to purchase one for themselves or to donate it or to give it as a gift for a friend. They are then usable at all of the, and I believe we're close to 30 participating merchants in the city of Mason. You can take your gift card and for whatever amount you purchased it for to those participating merchants, and then they ring it up much like they would a credit card. And the thing to remember is the transaction isn't processed until you go to that merchant, and that's when they receive the funds for whatever you may be purchasing. It also allows us a way, and certainly what the city is doing is buying some of these, what you call in bulk, and other businesses and organizations could buy bulk gift cards, could use those for their employees, either as gifts or for morale or for donations. And it allows you to touch, give folks a choice and touch a broad spectrum of businesses. We're also encouraging any Mason businesses that have yet to sign up. Again, you go online, go to the city's webpage for the gift card program. It's a relatively easy process to sign up, and you can then be a participating merchant on par with everyone else that's already signed up. So we find it a really good way both to couple some of the efforts we've taken for many years as far as marketing amenities, things like the Easter egg hunt, to both give back to the community, to our customers and to our participants, as well as to direct them to those merchants that are here in the city of Mason. So just a reminder of the success of that we've had. I think so far 715 of these gift cards have been purchased, both the city, which we are using for some of our most loyal premium members, as well as private purchases are reflected in that. And those are for various amounts. And then close to 100, I think, maybe more by now, have been redeemed with local merchants. Second item, Mayor, I wanted to introduce some folks. Double check that they're here. I may have to wake them up. I have Chief Brummagem and Chief Carter that maybe I'll talk for a little bit to make sure they're in the meeting. Chief Carter's here. They, as you know, have been the incident commanders. About a month ago, a little less than a month ago, as we were understanding the pandemic here, City of Mason made a conscious decision to move to Instant Command, which is a nationally recognized protocol, most specifically in emergency services, how to manage a critical incident. The city's been fortunate because we've been practicing this for many years across all departments. So things like red rhythm boom or snow removal, we've used Instant Command. It's a way to streamline both communications, decision-making, and for our purposes here, probably most significantly to really, especially when you have scarce resources, which the city is definitely experiencing now in terms of staffing, you take the resources of time, staffing, and you direct them to the most critical needs. In this case, emergency and life safety needs. So a lot of the city's resources for the last month have been directed under Instant Command to those type of needs. Everything else, and I know residents, I know some of you, myself, have felt this, our ability to respond or to deliver on some of our customary services has been diminished because we really are focusing on trying to lead forward with those emergency services. So with that, I was hoping that the chiefs, the incident commanders, could maybe give a 10, 15-minute summary of what the experience has been the last month. And if you have any questions for them, I think they're prepared to answer them. So with that, Chief Carter.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Let me say good evening to you all, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of council. Good to see you all looking healthy this evening. As Eric mentioned, we wanted to give you, I'm here with Fire Chief Brummagem. We wanted to give you just a thumbnail of the incident command system, how we've been using it for, I think it's 33 days now. So in early March, we got together as a group, as an organization, and looked at where we thought this COVID-19 situation might go. We didn't, the word pandemic at the time wasn't being kicked around as much as it is now, but we looked at it and saw the possibilities and started discussions about how we best might respond to that. So we had a meeting, I think it was, our first meeting was a day-long meeting. It was a lot of discussion. And we decided at that point that we would transition into the incident command system. What the incident command system is in general, it's basically a standardized and structured management system that allows us to combine resources, whether that's equipment, personnel, financial considerations, supplies, things like that, how we might prepare for the possibility of COVID-19 becoming the pandemic. It allowed us to integrate our facilities, equipment, personnel, and procedures under a common umbrella, under that basic incident command organizational structure. We had the benefit, as Mr. Hansen mentioned, that we had used incident command in the past. We used it Red Rhythm and Boom with the Heritage Festival, at the tennis tournament, and even in ice and snow removal emergencies. And we found that it worked pretty well. The other advantage there was when we decided with this COVID-19 to transition to incident command, our city employees were familiar with it. So nobody paused, nobody had to ask a lot of questions. They were familiar with incident command, so it made it a very smooth transition and got us up and running very quickly. Our current IC team, incident command team, is comprised of command, finance, logistics, operations, and I'm missing one, public information. And our team is representative and operational across the entire city staff, and all the departments in the city as well. So again, it allowed us to immediately begin preparing and shifting what resources we thought would be needed to where they were needed. It allowed us to immediately begin planning for both long and short-term efforts during the pandemic. Our short-term goals were to get supplies and get the resources accounted for and get them where we needed to get them. Long-term goals we're still working on. So it is an ongoing process. And as I mentioned, I think today is day 33. It allowed us to take and quickly identify resources and personnel issues and ways that we could keep our workforce and our employees healthy so that we could continue to provide critical services and needed services to our residents. I want to give a particular shout out, I think, to our logistics team on the incident command. They quickly identified what we would need to keep our employees healthy, and some of that was cleaning supplies and personal protection gear for our first responders. And to tell you that I think we were considerably ahead of other cities, other jurisdictions would be an understatement. We actually, at this point, and even when we first started, we got ahead of the game pretty quickly. I think the quick and smooth transition to incident command allowed us to be better prepared to meet the demands of this pandemic. It allowed us to keep our first responders and essential city staff healthy and working, which was key to keeping our community up and running the way it should be. I would say that our incident command team is going to remain in operation through the entirety of this pandemic. We continue to work cooperatively to achieve the goals that incident command has set, both short and long term. Our first responders, most notably police, fire, EMS, and public utilities, continue to provide services, but we are taking extra steps to make sure those folks stay healthy in order to keep our residents safe and healthy as well. I guess in closing, I just want to say that our community is, like to thank our community and its residents for their help. Social distancing and attention to the governor's directives are essential. And from what I'm hearing from our police and fire, the people that are out on the streets, and our public utilities workers, our community is doing a pretty good job of paying attention to that. So I think with incident command and the cooperation of the community, we're probably doing the best that we can do. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chief Brummingen, who has a couple of comments also. Thank you.
Mayor, Council, thanks for having us. Chief Carter and I are here in our Emergency Operations Center. We've been practicing social distancing as well here, so that's why I was off screen. As Chief Carter said, on Thursday, March 12th, the city instituted a formal incident command structure to manage our response to COVID-19. Our attention had initially turned to this in early 2020. We started monitoring the situation based off reports that we were getting from the Ohio Department of Health and the Ohio Division of EMS. Early on, departments were individually checking their inventory, ordering supplies, staying vigilant on their cleaning, and trying to conduct many other preventative items to put us in a good spot. It's important to note that as we look through this, like I said, we started on March 12th. It's important to note here from the incident command standpoint that we had no advanced warning of the governor's orders or anything that came from the Department of Health. So a lot of our initial work, which our staff spent quite a considerable amount of time on in the first few days, was mostly reactive. So that unified command team that we talked about, the incident command team that Chief Carter mentions, made up of a finance section, a logistics section, operations, and planning. In all, that team has grown to 31 people, not all together in one place at one time, but as we discussed, we do have representatives from every department in the city on that team. We have been using the EOC as our base of operations since March 12th. And I'd like to take a few minutes to provide some updates on what each section has been doing in the last 33 days. Like I said, the operations section, they have probably the most cross-representation from each department. Each section has a chief that operates as the section chief. The operations section chief was Chief Farrell, or is Chief Farrell. He's really helped us wrap our arms around what's going on in the day-to-day operations of the city, around any issues that we have, and address those quickly. The operations team had a representative from every department that helped us bring many ideas forward, that helped our planning team to help them get a jump start on any potential problems and solutions that we may need moving forward. Like I said, in the operations section, initially there was a lot of activity based on the governor's announcements. It seemed every day at 2 o'clock we were getting something different thrown at us. This section oversaw the initial continuity of operations and helped us get a handle on what was occurring day to day in the city and help us identify our risks to our employees and the citizens. Two key topics dominate our initial response in the first few days: how to protect the health and wellness of our employees, and how to operate the community center in a way we could limit risk to the community. Ultimately, we made the decision to close the community center on Sunday the 15th and prep the facility for future community needs. Throughout this whole process, the operations section has helped us keep a pulse on the organization, assess employee morale, evaluate our day-to-day operations, and make adjustments as necessary. We've gone in 33 days from a period of all city staff working to emergency staff working only. And our operations section worked directly with our department heads and department reps to make sure that resources were shifted to support those emergency operations. Our planning team, during the first week, our planning team began work to allow us to react to any potential stay-at-home order, any decision that would limit our city services, would restrict our employees, or would cause us to limit city services. That team is led by Assistant City Engineer Steve Harkey, with significant help from HR Director Carrie Geiser. That team worked with our department heads to identify task lists for each department and categorize those tasks in 3 ways: our everyday essential city services, our critical city services, and our emergency services. The team created a plan that put us in the best position to react to various scenarios if they were announced by the Department of Health with limited time to act. The planning team also developed work plans for city employees, both part-time and full-time, that would still allow our staff to work, but adhere to social distancing measures. In addition, our planning team also did the work to create and properly license a temporary childcare facility. That was one of our needs that we used the community center for as we were preparing it for other needs, as I discussed earlier, was that they called it a temporary pandemic childcare facility that was licensed by the state, and we have used that for Tri-Health medical professionals and city employees. As we move through this process, the planning team has helped us work through all of the human resource related questions, researched recently passed legislation related to that, and helped us find new ways to connect with and take care of our employees. A lot of employees are also working remotely, and trying to keep them engaged in our health and wellness program is something that we are taking seriously and trying to improve upon as well. Our logistics team, as Chief Carter mentioned, has done an outstanding job. They're led by Police Lieutenant Matt Hayes. That team was tasked early on with establishing an inventory list of supplies that the city had on hand and creating a central supply depot. Our initial goal was to make sure we had the needed supplies for 6 months. We found in many cases that we were very close to that, but in some areas we were not. That early assessment there in early mid-March and the proactive follow-up by the logistics team have put us in a great position. Our police officers, firefighter, paramedics, and public utilities crew members have the protective equipment that they need. We have disinfectant supplies. We were able to get all of this before it became difficult to get. It is now difficult to get. In addition, the logistics team quickly implemented a system to order carryout meals from Mason restaurants for city staff members and Tri-Health medical professionals. This program has been going on every weekday since the resident restaurants were transitioned to carryout only. The acknowledgement of this program by our restaurants has been outstanding. They have been greatly appreciative. Our logistics team has done an amazing job to make sure our customers, both internal and external, are taken care of. And last but certainly not least, our finance section has played a vital role in this response. The finance rules generally still apply in responses such as this, so we have a dedicated command staff position to oversee this. That is resource technician Allison Hall. She's been tracking all of our expenditures directly related to the response, making sure that we are following the correct processes to buy our supplies and keeping our documentation current in the event that the state or federal government makes reimbursement available. To date, we spent a little over $50,000 on supplies, meals, and other things related to the response. One of those purchases was nearly $20,000. That was a large shipment of an EPA registered disinfectant that we will use regardless of the times we're in. And that is on the agenda tonight for council approval. In closing, for me, our team has spent a significant amount of time on our response to this. It really has been our main priority for the last 33 days. Our team's done an outstanding job. We've tried to make decisions in lockstep with the best scientific guidance available and be as proactive as possible in protecting our employees and the community. What we're doing in the city and throughout the region is working. We certainly hope we don't see a surge in calls for service, but we are prepared if we do. Our team continues to work on what the plan looks like to get our employees back to work and reopen the city as quickly and as safely as possible once the stay-at-home order is amended or lifted. We're prepared to respond to the emergency right now, and we're here to support the long-term return and recovery of the community as needed. With that, I think we'll take any questions. Or Mr. Hanson, would you like to take it for us?
Council members have any questions? I'm not sure that let me fix my gallery. Councilmember Chance, I see you now.
Yeah, I just wanted to, that's leadership, guys, and I greatly appreciate it. You said a few things. Well, you mentioned a lot of different things, but what I heard was being proactive and not reactive. And I just want to say thank you for that. I mean, you mentioned several times, I think you and Chief Carter, that your job was to protect our employees and the citizens, right?
Correct.
And you guys done an incredible job with that. And I just want to say again, if it was given any other circumstances, I don't know how you could prepare for this, but hearing what you guys just explained, what you did and how you did prepare is absolute the leadership that I expect out of Mason. So well done, guys. We're fortunate to have you. That's for sure. So appreciate it. Keep up the good work. And obviously, if there's any support that you need from us, we're here for you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, don't see any other hands, so we will on Chief Carter. Chief, it's great to see you healthy and well, and I know you must be exhausted. Everything you guys are doing is so greatly appreciated. As Councilmember Chance said, I know our community really appreciates this report. It's very interesting indeed. So thank you again. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we will continue on in our agenda. Mr. Hanson, do you have anything?
Yes, I just want to kind of, as a footnote to that or a note, someday, we're not there yet maybe, but there's a debt of gratitude we owe to the incident commanders here, as well as a very extensive team that would like to acknowledge at some point that does cross all departments. I think council would be very impressed to realize the diversity of folks there. You've got engineers, resource technicians and account clerks, folks from throughout the city that are very well prepared, didn't break stride when they were pulled into incident command. Everyone's job here has kind of been, shaken around and then dumped out. Have done extremely well with incident command. I'm very pleased. I thought I would comment a bit, but it just became an overwhelming list. There's a lot of good news in the community, both out of incident command employees, our corporations. Many of them are retooling to react to the current crisis. Folks that aren't in this business but are now making face shields. Folks that have retooled to provide to help the supply chain for things like sanitizers, down to folks that are just common acts of kindness between neighbors. We've used some of our employees to make calls to check in on our seniors and our veterans. And there are just too many stories of both gratitude as well as reverse gratitude when you call a senior and they're actually wanting to make sure that everyone else is taken care of. Just a lot of heartwarming as well as very pragmatic activity going on, both via instant command through the city, but also throughout the community. So it's a good, I know there are kind of perilous times, but it is a good testament to neighborliness and the quality of community we have. We're well prepared for things like this. You never want to encounter them, but I think it's just heartwarming and kind of affirming to see how well things have gone despite some very difficult circumstances. So I wanted to personally thank instant commanders. I don't know how I'd have survived without the instant command in place, and as well as a very large team of employees that aren't all here with us, can't be here with us, and are sometimes frustrated by that, but doing a great job at keeping things together. And finally, I do want to, with any residents that may be watching, just acknowledge, I know it's frustrating. I think employees are frustrated because a lot of things that we're used to doing and used to doing well, we're not doing as well or as responsive. Everything from answering the mail, picking up the phone, to chipping brush. And the reason for that, and I wish I could just explain it to everyone when they get frustrated, because it's sometimes employees take a lot of pride in their work and don't like not being able to do the work they're accustomed to. But I do want our residents to just feel confident that the reason for that at root is what you just heard from the chiefs, to make sure that we're taking care of the most important, most critical things, putting our resources there. We'll have to catch up on the other at some point, and it'll be a while of catch up. But our purpose is clear here, is to make sure we take care of the crisis first. And so I hope council members and certainly all of our residents will grant us some grace and some patience as we try and do that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate that report. And thanks again to Chief Brummagem and Chief Carter. It's great to catch up on some housekeeping items today so that our community can be aware of the good work that you all are doing and the good things that are going on despite all of the hardship in our community and in our world. Before we get into the business section or the legislative section of our agenda, I asked our law director to give us a few reminders about procedure. There have been lots of questions floating around the internet about how procedures work, and just some reminders about how to keep order in the awkward situation of a Zoom meeting. I am not the host. ICRC is the host. I cannot mute anyone. So we're all counting on each other to be muted when we don't have the floor. But Jeff, if you could go and give us some advice before we get started.
Certainly. Thank you, Mayor. And this is really no different than what I would normally tell you for any regular council meeting. It just may have a little more weight today since we're not in the same room. We're not sitting shoulder to shoulder, although it looks like it as I look at all of your little boxes on the screen here. I would just remind you, just like any meeting, if you want to speak, you need to be acknowledged by the chair. You should direct all of your comments to the chair, so that only one person is speaking at a time. It's pretty easy for many people to want to talk at the same time, and in this format that we're in now, it just becomes it's very difficult to understand what people are saying and to hear what people are saying. So I would just remind people one at a time, wait till you've been acknowledged, and then the floor will be yours to speak. And hopefully we won't be stepping over each other and speaking over each other. in that capacity. And as we've said before, if you're not speaking, and I can tell everybody is, it's best to remain on mute until you've been acknowledged. Thank you.
Councilmember Chance?
Yeah, with that, thanks, Jeff, for that explanation. I know are we going to do old and new business at the end?
Yes, we made a motion and second
Okay.
to, and then we had a roll call. So can that wait? And we can go ahead into the legislative
Sure.
portion.
Well,
of our-
I've got I would like to make a motion just to move item number 8 up in the meeting, because I believe if we're going to discuss consideration of previously tabled items, I think it's probably smart to discuss that before at least 7. So it doesn't need to go right now, but I think I would like to make a motion to move it up at least before 2046, because I think that's going to have, that discussion will have impact on what we decide to do on 2046. So I'd like to make the motion to move number 8 up till now, or at least before number 7.
May I suggest that we get the other 2 items done first, and so move it up to before item 7?
That's perfect. Yeah, thank you.
Will that be amenable? Is there a second for that?
I second it.
Do we need to have a roll call?
Mayor, as we've said in prior meetings, it's probably easier to, I know it's inconvenient, but it's probably wise to do a roll call just so we can make sure we know what the actual vote count is.
Okay, before we do roll call, is there any discussion on that matter? One at a time, please. On that motion. Okay, Eric, if you could call the roll, please.
Councilmember Bradburn,
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb,
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw,
Yes.
Mayor Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Chance.
Yes.
And the motion passes unanimously. Okay, item number 5 on the agenda, ordinance 2020-44. I need a motion to read by title only.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
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 Ratifying and authorizing the purchase of cleaning supplies from Rave Cleaning Solutions in the amount of $19,762 in response to the COVID-19 pandemic and declaring an emergency.
Jennifer, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Mayor, members of council, I think that both of the chiefs and Eric covered much of this legislation in their discussion about the city's attempt or response to the COVID crisis. One of the things I would like to add on, a couple things. First of all, outside even the incident command team, I think you know that there's employees throughout the organization that have really stepped up. I know that we received about 300 to 400 N95 masks that didn't have elastic bands on them. And there was an employee in our organization that does some sewing and was able to help out our logistics team or operations team in order to make that or to repair those masks. So there's a lot of little examples like that where, like Eric said, we are just a machine. Once you get that incident command structure in place, we move forward. And I think that's one of the reasons we are so successful. I also think that we are so successful in responding to this crisis because on March 18th, we declared the state of the emergency, which allowed us to move forward with purchases that may exceed $15,000. And what that allowed us to do was move forward with the purchase of the disinfecting solution. The fire department uses it to clean all their equipment on a daily basis. This allowed us to buy significant quantities of it and have on hand, which was critical to what we're currently dealing with. And I also want to point out is the partnership. You know, we talk so much about building partnerships, especially at the community center, but throughout the organizations, employees in all departments understand how important that is to what we do on a daily basis. And this was, again, another example where our police department had a relationship with Snazzy's Car Wash. when this situation went down, Snazzy reached out to us and said, hey, we are affiliated with another company. They have disinfecting supplies. They have a whole bunch of TB quads. Are you guys interested in it? And our fire department or police department, Matt Hayes said, absolutely we are. We need that. And so we were able to, like I said, to move forward with ordering a significant quantity of it should hopefully get us through this crisis and into the future. And it won't go to waste. Like I said, the fire department uses it on a daily basis. So even after this crisis, it'll still be beneficial to us. So with that, ordinance 2020-44 is recommended for adoption. Thank you.
Thank you. I need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? I need a motion to adopt.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Any council discussion? Okay, let's call the roll.
Councilmember Bradburn,
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb,
Yes. Yes.
sorry. Councilmember Hunterlaw,
Yes.
Mayor Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
and Councilmember Chance.
Yes.
Item 6 on the agenda, ordinance 2020-45. I need a motion to read by title only.
So moved. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
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 Any opposed? Okay, this one is for our city engineer, Kurt Seiler.
Oh,
Hi, Kurt.
wait.
Hi.
Mayor, I
Jeff,
need,
you wanna go
I need
ahead
to
and-
read it. I'll read
Okay.
it by title only first.
Oh, sorry, goodness sake.
That's okay.
Yeah. and
This is ordinance 2020-45, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Five Rivers Metro Parks to purchase wetland mitigation credits for the purpose of wetland mitigation due to the State Route 741 Spyglass Hill to Weldon Drive improvement project.
Thank you. I was so excited about this topic that I forgot. We needed to read by title only. Kurt? Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is part of our capital improvement project at 741 in Bethany that'll start construction most likely next year sometime. One thing that keeps going on during this pandemic is capital improvement projects, both in the design phase and in construction. This ordinance is needed to keep the environmental report moving along for this project. The project will disturb just under 1/4 acre, and it's requiring, some of the wetland requires us a 2.5 to 1 ratio. Some of it's a 1.5 to 1 ratio, but in total, we need 0.6 mitigation credits for this. And we're recommending this bank because we only have a couple of options in our area. In our immediate drainage area, there's no wetland banks available, so we're allowed to go out to the secondary or possibly tertiary ring around it. This is the cheapest that we can get these mitigation credits. And the benefit to mitigation credits is this allows more dollars to go towards larger, more impactful wetland rather than us building a wetland to offset our mitigation that's needed for this project. So it's a much more cost-effective option for us, and one that we also used at the Bethany Road roundabout 6 years ago or so. So with that, ordinance 2020-45 is recommended for adoption, and I'll answer any questions that you have.
I need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Any
Yes.
opposed? Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Any council discussion? Okay, let's call the roll.
Councilmember Stricula,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb,
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw,
Yes.
Mayor Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Chance,
Yes.
and Councilmember Bradburn.
Yes.
We are now moving on to item 7, substituting or switching items 7 and 8. So we're going to be covering the consideration of previously tabled ordinance 2020-43. We need that motion to remove the ordinance from tabled status and allow for consideration by council.
I'll make that
I'll make that
motion.
motion.
Second.
Second.
A reminder that we cannot discuss this motion to untable or take this off the table. So we need to go straight into the roll call. Eric?
Vice Mayor Gilb. Vice Mayor Gilb.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Did you-
Sorry.
You called me, yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw.
Yes.
Mayor Grossman.
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson.
Yes.
Councilmember Chance.
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn.
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula.
No, I'm just kidding. Yes, I'm just joking. Yes, yes, please.
Okay. Okay. I believe we may have a motion to make an amendment that was suggested in our committee meeting. Is
Mayor, I would make a motion to amend, if I could make a few comments before I make a motion to amend. I did want to report that the Finance Committee met this afternoon and discussed the situation we find ourselves in, a desire to help Mason small businesses on an immediate basis, and looked at what neighboring communities are doing in terms of helping out where they can help out. And certainly we looked at those other programs, particularly a program in Hamilton, Ohio, gift card program, where they had provided funds for their community to assist where they could. And I see an opportunity for us to reach out to help our small businesses in Mason by way of implementing a additional gift card program. We already have the Nifty 50 gift card program in operation that operates a little bit differently in terms of, you buy into that program, but the merchant doesn't receive any funds until you actually go with your gift card to them and use your gift card. I'd like to propose an amendment to 2020-43 that would authorize the city to spend up to $160,000 on an immediate basis. That it would enter a contract with the Community Development Corporation, Mason Deerfield Township Community Development Corporation, to go out and make those purchases from needy businesses and bring those gift cards back to the city for distribution by the city. I don't know how best to make the amendment other than perhaps to just read it into the record, and if council would indulge me, I would like to read my proposed amendments to, actually I'd like to just read 2020-43 the way I would like to have it amended. And Mayor, is that appropriate?
Yes, I think that's for the best, especially in this format. I believe, I know that I got this document was emailed to me between the Finance Committee meeting and this meeting, so I printed it out.
So I did ask, I did ask the city manager to do that. I don't know if all council members were able to get an actual copy of the amendment. But let me just read what I would propose that we adopt as, and I would propose this as basically an amendment to 2020-43. So the title would be authorizing the city manager to enter into a service agreement with the Mason Deerfield Chamber Community Development Corporation and declaring an emergency. And it would read, whereas in order to create or preserve jobs and employment opportunities and to improve the economic welfare of the people of Mason, it's been determined to be in the public interest and a proper public purpose for Mason to engage in certain economic development activities. And whereas the city council believes it's critical to assist the business recovery of the city of Mason small business community as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas City Council wants to establish a program with the Mason Deerfield Community Development Corporation to help implement a gift card program similar to the one adopted by the City of Hamilton. And whereas in order to provide such assistance, council hereby declares it to be a proper public purpose to provide funds to supplement Mason's current gift card program to assist Mason small businesses negatively affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, including entering into a service agreement with the CDC. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Mason, Ohio, however many of us there to concur, Section 1, that the city manager is hereby authorized to enter into a service agreement with the CDC to act as Mason's agent to purchase gift cards from Mason small businesses negatively affected by the COVID-19 pandemic in the total amount of $160,000. Section 2, that there is hereby appropriated from the general fund an amount of $160,000 to be paid for gift card purchased by the CDC to promote a business recovery program for City of Mason small businesses. Section 3, that the service agreement between the city and CDC shall provide that all gift cards purchased by the CDC shall be delivered to Mason within a reasonable period of time after purchase. In Section 4, that this ordinance is hereby declared to be an emergency measure necessary for the preservation of the public peace, health, safety, and welfare shall be effective immediately upon its adoption. The reason for said declaration of emergency is the need to authorize the funding at the earliest possible date in order to immediately begin the business recovery efforts needed as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. With that, Mayor, I would submit that as an amendment to 2020-43.
Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Okay. All right, so the motion was made and amended, and now we need to, is there council discussion before the roll call? Councilmember Chance?
Yeah, well, hey, this is encouraging. You know, I watched the finance committee as well, and you know, it is, at least we're getting off the dime, but it's also a little discouraging as well, because here I know that you took time, Eric, and went through and detailed every one of what all these other cities were doing. And I'm sitting here and I'm still confused and perplexed by why are we trying to mimic anyone? You know, I've got this CDC proposal, and I think everybody's had the opportunity to look through and read it. And Vice Mayor Gilb, thank you for recognizing this, making this amendment. I don't know where you came up with $160,000, which I think is extremely light, but hey, it's a start, and thank you. And I would love to look at this $160,000 and say, let's get it dispersed tomorrow. However, the gift cards, I still think the gift cards are, I'm not sure that's the best play here, right? Because I sit here and I think to myself, yeah, there's a lot of people that could help, but gift cards, is that going to pay rent? Can that go towards paying rent?
Yeah.
Mayor, I don't know if that's a question to me.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Vice Mayor Gill. You're the one that birthed this thing up. So yeah, I'd love to know,
Yeah,
can that pay rent?
So sorry, I don't want to misunderstand what you're saying, but
Sure, sorry.
the actual dollars to the business are the purchase of the gift cards. So it's not the gift card goes to pay rent. It is a merchant saying, I need so much funding immediately. Therefore, city purchase gift cards from my business that can be used in the future at my business, but it's actual cash into the business owner's hands that they can use then to meet their needs, pay their payroll, pay their rent, pay their utilities, things that they have need. So it's not actually the gift card paying rent for somebody. It is the CDC or the City of Mason coming into your business and giving you cash in exchange for gift cards from your business.
Gotcha, good. All right, so, that, like I said, man, we're getting off the dime here. This is good. However, I think about that, being a business guy myself, I'm putting on my business cap and infusing that capital now with the gift cards, right? So I can take a gift card and, say John Mays has been cutting my hair now for, I think, 38, 39 years, however long it's been. And I take that gift card, I walk into John Mays and say, hey, here's my gift card. And opposed to paying him again, so you see what I'm saying? Like, I just kind of get caught up in, is that taking away revenues in the future? And I don't know, Josh, I know you've kind of really rolled up your sleeves and, uncovered what Hamilton did and looked into that. Is that something that they're seeing or understanding or anything along those lines? I'm sorry, Mayor, anyone can answer me that. But do you understand where I'm going?
I was slow to react to you before. I wasn't sure you were finished with your question for Vice Mayor Gill, but yes, we all need to remember that comments and questions need to be directed at the chair.
Sure.
You were asking about the gift card, and I think this is something I've brought up before too. Will the gift card become a liability later when you go to use it? No, you are purchasing the gift card now, it sounds like. We're purchasing the gift cards, I'm sorry. And whoever decides to sell their good or service with the gift card will be given cash up front, and then the consumer will choose whether or not to use the gift card in the future at a later date. If you want to pay your barber twice, that's your choice. It puts the choice back into the hands of the consumer, and I think that answers your question, but I will allow Josh, Councilmember Stricula, to please address Councilmember Chance's questions about the gift card, and then we can bounce over to Vice Mayor Gill.
Well, I think that there's maybe some misconceptions about Hamilton's program. And this was, I brought it up a couple of times, actually, talking about Hamilton's program. So I do want to thank the Vice Mayor for his work on this and actually bringing something to the table that we can talk about and discuss. So I appreciate that, Vice Mayor Gill. Thank you. Hamilton, and I have their ordinance actually pulled up on my screen because I use this as kind of part of the genesis of the original 2020-43. And I want to be very clear, because what we're asking to do is utilize our community development corporation to just go and get the gift cards and give the cards back to the city, right, to then be dispersed later. Is that, I just want to make sure I understand the amendment correctly from that standpoint. That's how I'm reading it. So maybe that's not a question, that's more. But go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Mayor, if I could address that, I think you're reading it correctly, that we would, at least my thought would be, if we adopt this amendment and we adopt this ordinance, would be that the city would engage the CDC through a service agreement to be the agent for the city, to go out with $160,000, infuse that into the community where the needs are the greatest, and bring those gift cards back to the city for distribution, or however the city would want to utilize that resource.
Okay, thank you for that clarity. So I do understand that. I think the CDC is the right partner to do that. I think that they understand and they have their finger on the pulse of the small business community to be able to identify those businesses that need it the most. The big difference, however, is that the gift cards are coming back to the city. Hamilton's proposal, and I'm not saying that we should be like Hamilton 100%, but their proposal is that those gift cards actually are retained by their Hamilton Economic Development Corporation, which is our CDC, right? And it specifically says, and I just bear with me, please, because I want to read this, because I want to make sure that this is understood. In section 3 of their ordinance, it says the HEDC, Hamilton Economic Development Corporation, shall, it talks about administrative expenses. So all monies recovered after the first 15,000 and recouped shall be placed into a revolving loan fund that they can then use to later provide 0% interest loans for small business lending purposes, right? So this creates a revolving loan fund program. So it's not, those gift cards did not go back to the city. Hamilton, again, granted that money to the HEDC to then be dispersed. The HEDC decided that they wanted to do this gift card program and buy these. Now they're holding on to these gift cards. They get to decide whether they want to sell those back or sell those out to the community to be used or not, right? Depending on how these businesses are going, right? So again, it's still a grant program. That's, so again, which is where the original 2020-43 kind of came from. And that's where those gift cards are beneficial, right? To answer Councilmember Chance's question, does that pay loans? Yes, the businesses are getting cash. Those gift cards that are being used, it applies now. We've created debt into the future, maybe, if those gift cards get put back into circulation. So I don't, again, I applaud the effort. I think this is definitely a step in the right direction, and everything that I was looking for from the standpoint of, hey, let's have a discussion about this. Let's talk about it. I'm upset that it's taken us 2 weeks to get to this point, but we're here. So let's work with it. I don't know. I guess I want to know what the city would do with those gift cards. And maybe this is the point that you're getting at, is why in this point we would use the CDC as an agent and not then allow them to keep those gift cards to use and put into recirculation as necessary. Is that a fair question to ask? I know
Yes,
it's a fair question. I would just like somebody to answer it, I guess.
Vice Mayor, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, certainly. So Josh, and I think the answer to that question is part of the concern I had with the way 2020-43 was originally drafted, because we're talking about public funds and then giving it to a private entity. And that's certainly something we as a governmental entity need to be concerned, I think, with, is appropriately managing taxpayer dollars. And so I think it's appropriate to engage the CDC as an agent for the city, but certainly it's city dollars and it's a city resource. What the city does with that resource is yet, I think, to be determined. But I see this as a mechanism to immediately get cash out to our small businesses that are in need of that cash. I certainly, as I mentioned in the Finance Committee meeting, recognize the federal CARES Act program, a program that is providing immediate cash infusions up to $10,000 per small business in Mason. Certainly want to encourage and make sure that every small business in Mason is applying for those dollars. Certainly they're having some difficulties initially, but I believe those dollars are going to start flowing in the very near future. And that if 500 small businesses in Mason apply for a $10,000 immediate grant, we're talking about a $5 million infusion into those businesses, certainly much more than we would ever be able to provide. But there are certainly needs between now and when that is going to happen that need to be fulfilled. And I see this as a way to at least get some initial cash out into the community to help fill those needs. And what the city does with that resource once it has it, I think is yet to be determined.
And I appreciate that, Vice Mayor. And again, I think yeah, I mean, I appreciate what you proposed for sure. I guess maybe the part that I'm struggling with is that this is not different than other service agreements or grants that we've done to other nonprofits. Again, using public funds, the dollar amount, I'll concede, is much, much higher. But there's not much more that we do. I mean, that comes and we see a direct impact to our city with our residents, with our businesses here. And so that's maybe where I'm having, where I'm struggling, understanding how this is much different than any of those other nonprofits that we support throughout the year during normal economic cycles and economic events. Is there a problem with the CDC? Is there a problem with? I mean, I'm just trying to figure this out, because there seems to be a hang up with the CDC being able to handle this, or that being the nonprofit at which we're using to distribute or hold these funds, and be able to reinvest those back into the community at a later date.
Member Stricula, were you directing that question to Vice Mayor Gilbert or to the entire panel?
Anybody who would answer it, I think at this point, I mean, it seems to be the hang up is the CDC and them actually being able to redistribute. I mean, we've worked with other nonprofits a lot in the past. And so that's why, and again, I concede the amount is different, but the purpose, I think, is the same. And I'm sorry, Vice Mayor Gilbert, I keep cutting you off. Go ahead, please.
Not a problem. I'm glad to answer that question, because certainly as I looked at 2020-43, I had that same concern, because part of our principles in terms of how we help charities, other nonprofit organizations, is typically we require a 2-for-1 match. something I don't think we're requiring here. I think in light of the exigent circumstance that exists here, we shouldn't require that. But certainly, generally, when we help a charity, it's on a match basis. It's not just here's funds, go spend them. It's typically, if you can raise money, we will help match that money and provide some support to you. And so again, these are public dollars being used for an appropriate, I think, public purpose. And I think it's appropriate for us to control that resource as it's acquired. Thank you.
Councilmember Nelson, please.
Hi, thank you, Vice Mayor Guild, for proposing this, and thank you to the other council members for allowing us to discuss it. I think, you know, it's a great concept. I thought that we kind of agreed before that we weren't fond of the gift card program. I'm going to do anything to support our local businesses. I am not really fond of passing this particular ordinance as you presented. I don't think $160,000 going back into the small business community is really going to help them. Who's going to print these cards? There's other costs involved now when you're doing it this way that, you know, we could be using those funds to give directly back to the community. They don't want gift cards. They need funds right now. And it is a liability on their financials until those gift cards come into play. So we're not giving them what we could give them as a community. I don't really know how we went from, hey, you know, I don't think $500,000 is enough to 160. So if you want to do that on top of the 500,000, I'm all for it. But I really don't think that $160,000 of gift cards is really going to help them right now. And also there's some businesses where gift cards aren't really appropriate. So how do you determine that? To keep the ordinance 2020-43 as is, I think is really our best bet. I mean, the CDC already has, let me see, so in their proposal right here, they already have in place the program summary, the structure, the application process, how it will be promoted, the eligibility criteria, and the accountability for the program. There's transparency provisions in there. There's audit requirements in the service agreement. The process is already done and it's already ready to go. All that they're waiting for really is a vote from council. We have to think, I mean, I know there's been some talk about why is the CDC doing this? I don't think it's appropriate. I mean, government at any level with the political process, all right? So we have to have public notices, meeting requirements, administrative complexities. We're not designed or equipped really to act swiftly. Whereas the CDC, being non-for-profit, being part of the small business community, that's why they're created. They're created to accept grants and distribute them back out into the community. They understand what the small businesses need. They're familiar with the small businesses. You know, and I think it's funny because we talked about the different, in the finance committee meeting, we talked about the other communities around us that have stepped up to the plate to help the small businesses. And as of today, I mean, we talked about that, Hamilton County, Troy, Springboro, Summit County, they've all used their chamber to help distribute relief. And I think it's interesting to note that Troy had contacted our Mason Deerfield Chamber and asked them for a copy of the proposal that they provided that's included with our 2020-43 ordinance. They took that, the exact thing, and they implemented it within 4 days. They had money going back into their community within 4 days. So this program is already created. It's up and running and ready to go. The website's been created. The bank account's been established. So I'm not really sure where any concern would ever be to use the CDC. Give it to them and be done with it so the city can go on providing essential services and dealing with COVID-19, allowing the CDC to kind of take control of that. So, I mean, I am all for if you want to add the 160 of gift cards in there, but I definitely don't think that that's all that we can do for our small businesses, especially with a, $3 million economic sustainability fund out there. Even with a 20% reduction of all of our revenues, we're still going to have a $4 million surplus. Let's put that back into our community and let's support our small businesses. So that's where I stand on it.
Vice Mayor Gill, would you like to respond?
The only thing I'd like to say is that our focus, I think, needs to be on helping small businesses in Mason, not in doing things that help other organizations. But really, what can we do to focus our attention on meeting the needs that exist out in the community? This is an initial first step. I think Councilmember Chance recognized this is a great first step into helping the small businesses that are out there. We certainly have another ordinance to consider in terms of some bigger support and what we can do in that direction. But certainly this is an effort to initially get out into the community on an immediate basis and bring some support to our local small businesses. And that's the direction that it is headed in. Certainly, I had some concerns with the ordinance as originally drafted in terms of, was it really helping small businesses? Was it really funding, just seed funding, the CDC? I think our focus should be on the small businesses in Mason, not helping another organization get funding for itself. But I'll leave it at that.
Can I comment back on that? I don't think at all that it is funding the CDC. This is a separate bank account. They have to be accountable for all those funds, and all those funds will be distributed to small businesses or given back to the city. It's not going to stay in the CDC just for them to, to use. This is directly going back out to the small businesses. I also think that because we don't have a program set up yet for gift cards, there's going to be a delay on that. Whereas this program is ready to go. And I can tell you within 4 days, we can, put $500,000 back into our small business community.
Just a reminder, wait to be acknowledged by the chair, please. We do have a gift card program set up, and we can do a modification or a supplemental program that works with this ordinance amendment that we have not yet voted on if the CDC is not available or not amenable to offering this service at this time. Councilmember Bradburn, do you have any comments to share? I was hoping to give everybody a chance before we circle back around.
I share Ashley Chance's comments. It's a step. It's also something that we can go ahead and revisit to refill if we have to and take it from there. But obviously, I think Vice Mayor has indicated that the money will go for cards. The money, however, the business owner decides to use the money, I think that's up to him. So I don't have any more than that. I think it's a reasonable first step, and let's continue on.
Okay, Councilmember Honderlaw.
Thank you, Mayor. Some of the notes I put down was one, I saw this as at least this is just a first step, and I am thankful we're all able to come together on something. I think if this is something we can collaborate on and come together, let's take this step and get something going and move forward, and then go somewhere. This seems more fair to me. It's not just, if I'm understanding it correctly, it's not just 50 employees or less, or just brick and mortar. It's open. It seems more fair where it's open to all businesses. I know that certain council members referenced the city of Lebanon. I think in comparison, the city of Lebanon did $40,000, and it was a 2,000 max or something. I think we're doing much more, and it was that was praised, I think. So I think this is better than that. So I'm thinking should be good. Nothing will be completely fair, but I think that at least this is closer. So I guess the only thought I had about this and anything else we work on this is, I'd like to know how this works as current council members that are also small business owners, and would we have to abstain, or would we have to publicly say we're not going to participate in any programs to make sure that as businesses, we're not voting ourselves more money to our own businesses? I know with Ashley's got a downtown business, and Josh is a business. I've got a business. Some of us are running businesses. I think we have been able to keep our hands clean from this. If we're going to be voting on it, we would then should also have to say we won't be participating and voting ourselves more money. Thank you.
Councilmember Chance.
Sure. Yeah, Councilmember Hunterlaw, thanks for bringing that up because I know there's been a lot of people on this board that's had a beef with that. And I've heard it from, many different avenues in the city. And I'll go on publicly saying, look, I do own Eco Development. I don't need any of the money. I'm not taking any of the money and I would not ask for any of the money. However, I do own Adesso. I own the building that Adesso's in. I have zero interest inside Adesso. So I own the building. So I do want to make sure everybody's very clear on that and everybody understands I do own the building, but I do not have any interest inside Adesso. So, and we can get corporate papers and all that good stuff and all that. But I also want to address some of this stuff that was brought up. So also, is that clear? I'll go on the record. I will not take any of the money. So the one thing that I think we need to keep in mind and understand, everybody talks about this is public dollars. This started out in the private coffers. These people have paid into it. And I've heard in the finance meeting about, hey, let's go to big business. Let's go to big business and ask them, to participate in this. And, Lel Lutz, township trustee was quoted of saying, hey, they're getting together and working with Warren County. Well, they have to. They're a township. They have to attach themselves to the township. We don't. Right. So, they have to go that direction. And I commend them for doing that. That's good that they're looking out, for their interest inside their township. And that's why they got to go the county direction. So there's no need to look at that. Secondly, I also want to, we're brought up on the accountability side. Man, I don't know if everyone on here read this, like I said, this chamber program of what put together. First of all, they are the closest. I think everyone on here would admit the closest to the problem. These folks meet with these people. Vice Mayor Gilb, I'd just like to ask, how many times have you met with small business owners? I'll ask anyone that. I don't do it probably 1/100th of the amount that the chamber does. So certainly, and then if you read the accountability side, the MAID CDC will provide reports about the program to Mason as follows: the number of emails MAID chamber issued to members, the statistics for any web pages created about the program, the identity of the businesses who were awarded grants, and the amount of each grant. So I don't think in the event that we give them X amount of dollars, I don't think we're going to fund, the CDC. We're not putting money, into their coffers and then they can sit on it and pay for vacations to Tahiti, right? The accountability is baked into this thing and it's fully baked. As Councilmember Nelson said, this is fully baked and ready to go. I commend you, Vice Mayor Gilb. Thanks for jumping in and trying to make some recommendations. It is a start, but it doesn't come close to doing what we need to do, right? And when I look at this thing and I realize, we all said it 2 weeks ago, we said, well, $500,000 isn't even enough. Now we just reduced it by 68%. That doesn't make much sense to me. So I'm all for about if this is how we start, and this next ordinance is how we do the big infusion in an emergency like right now, let's go. Let's get it done. And I echo everyone on here. This is good to sit here and actually have a discussion. But why did this take 2 weeks to have this discussion? Vice Mayor Gill, when did you come up with this? Like, why have we been waiting for 2 weeks? There's been a lot of chatter, a lot of things out there in the public, and it's not been all good. I think we all know that. And I think we need, like I said, if everybody takes a minute to read this program, it's fully baked and ready to execute. And they're the closest to the problem. We don't need to burden staff. I mean, I think we heard, Mr. Hanson, the chiefs and everything else about working in through the incident command and how they've, they're focused on emergency services. Why are we going to burden with them about getting these gift cards? And now, I love Jenna Hurley and I know Jenna's been calling around to the local businesses, but why do we have Jenna Hurley when she could probably be used doing something else? I saw the video put on imaginemason.org. did we pay for that video? Well, I got it. Here's what I'll make a comment. We can talk
The
about that.
motion, please.
Sure. Well, this is geared towards emotion, but I Googled SBA loan COVID and 118 million results came up. So why do we think we have to do anything else besides 118 million Google results? So I think, hey, again, Vice Mayor Gill, I'm excited. This is good. We're having a discussion. This is healthy. This is what we should be doing. Productive. And this has been productive. We were very productive when we said, hey guys, go out, bake something up. And again, I love what the other cities are doing. They've done an exceptional job. You know what they did really good? Hitting the criteria of speed, efficiency. And this is good. This is ready to go. So, hey, well done. I think we should keep it at the amount and execute. Let's go.
Mayor, if I could
Finished?
respond to that. So certainly,
Well, I think I'm finished.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
yeah, so certainly, certainly I apologize for the time it took, but certainly appropriate to take a calm look at the situation, see what's going on, and come up with an appropriate measure to reach out into the community. So certainly we took some time. Certainly the Finance Committee had a couple of meetings to get together and decide how, what do we have, how best can we get involved? And I think we see that as a stepping stone process, an initial infusion, a secondary potentially infusion, a longer term infusion. Certainly there's more opportunities that we're going to need to be getting involved as this progresses through. We're going to need to even be involved as we come back to work and figure out ways that we can be helpful to the small business community to bring everybody back to work and back to recovery where we can. But this isn't a way for the CDC to go out where the needs are and to provide immediate cash to those businesses that are in need. And I think it's a good first step for us. And Mayor, I'm going to move that we call the question in terms of adopting this amendment that I had proposed.
On calling the question, may I get a little feedback going last? I'd like to comment on some of the, on the motion and council discussion and on some of the other comments made. I did see Councilmember Stricula's hand go up. Would you like to go before me?
Yeah, I mean, if I could, I think there were a couple comments that were directly related to me and maybe even how I looked at this. I mean, well, I won't get into that, but I want to talk about the CDC, the accountability piece. And I want to be clear that the CDC did not come to us, right? They did not come to us and say, hey, we want $500,000 to distribute to the small businesses, right? That came through discussions with me and Mr. Hansen and talking about the conduits of how we could make this work. Looking at what Hamilton did, they used, again, this has got to be the 5th time I've said this, they used their version of the CDC to do this. So I think it's almost insulting. It's insulting to the CDC, I know for sure, to say that they're just out looking for a handout and want to be propped up with city funds.
Council, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I don't think that was said just now.
Vice Mayor Gilb said that.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear it said like that. I just want to make sure that we're really being factual today. Go ahead.
Great. So it's not appropriate to say that the CDC wants our money. It's not appropriate to say that. They are a conduit. They were the most efficient conduit that we decided to use. We asked if they were willing to help, and they were willing and able. They came with created a proposal within 2 days. They came to that Monday meeting with that proposal, with that executive summary, listing all those things out. They're more than willing to add additional accountability pieces if we need it. And then they came to a meeting on Wednesday, April 1st, and we didn't even acknowledge that they were there, ready to talk about the issues that you're bringing up. And we just ignored them and tabled this. So, I think the CDC is there to help us if we need them. They will add additional accountability pieces if necessary, and if that's what council wants. they are the conduit that we need to be using. The city, again, I'll echo Councilmember Chance's, the city needs to be focused on other areas right now, not on this and dispersing gift cards. And I don't think, if we want to start with the $160,000, great. I think we do it, but I think we do it in a cash format. I don't think we use the gift cards. I don't think that's the best use of those funds. I don't think it gets the job done. I think it adds additional layers. And I want to talk about that Nifty Yifty program, because you mentioned that, Mayor, that we have that in place and we can use that and repurpose it if we need to. That money doesn't get to the businesses until those gift cards are actually used. So the yifty.com website or whatever that is would literally be holding those funds until me as a consumer would go in and use that gift card. So that doesn't do anything with getting the money directly to the businesses right now, which is, I think, what Vice Mayor Gill is wanting to do with his amendment, is get this money in the hands of the businesses today. Thanks.
Vice Mayor.
Mayor, if I could address, so I think Councilmember Chance has referred to the April 10th, 2020 letter that we received from the Mason CDC. And Councilmember Strickler is just responding. So what I was referring to was on page 1 of that, they come to us and say, we're asking the city of Mason to donate $500,000. And then they say, with that seed money provided by the city, we're going to create a fund, and that fund will be administered by the CDC. So that's where I came back to saying, they're asking us to seed a program that they are going to fund, and they're going to operate privately, but it's public money that's doing that. So I certainly didn't mean to impugn the CDC. I was just saying that they're asking us to donate $500,000 to them to seed a program that they would then administer with city money. And I don't want to mix those two things together. I think it's our job to protect taxpayer dollars and to make sure that they're appropriately spent. I do think it is a proper public purpose for us to infuse money into the community, $160,000 on an emergency basis to get this money out there. So I think it's proper for us to do that. But that's where I came back. It's the chamber's letter to us saying we want you to donate money to seed our program, and that certainly concerned me in that regard.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, for clarifying that. That letter came almost a week, 2 weeks after, I think, we went out to seek them first. So yeah, but thank you for clarifying that.
So, and certainly it's been an evolving situation and positions have changed.
Mayor? Just
Yes.
real quick. Yeah, there, to talk about, here's something that I think we're forgetting. I think we're forgetting the grit of small business, and kudos to the MAID CDC to throw this in there, because here's something that along with here's the separate letter that we received, along with close to the 1,000 names of support for the 500,000. It said something. This is what it reads. I hate to read to people, but I'm going to read it out loud because I know a lot of people don't have this. We strongly urge the council to address its concerns and move the Pay It Forward Mason Assist Program proposed solution forward expediently and empower the MAID CDC and the chamber to leverage their strong network and businesses to get immediate support to those who need it the most. We must accept the circumstance and we are in, which is we do not have time to approach this way we normally would. So what they're asking is, and I would almost guarantee it, if we challenge some of our small businesses that need it right now, but to also to get engaged and make known, hey, we have a Pay It Forward program as well. And I would almost guarantee that these folks will step up to the challenge because we came in and assisted them. They'll step up to the challenge and say, yeah, man, I would love to be able to pay it forward. It might not be in 60 days, might not be in 90 days, might be 6 months, might be 12 months, might be 2 years. I don't care how long it takes them, but that's foresight. That's planning, and that's preparation. Pay it forward. I guarantee I would love to know. I can't wait to see exactly how many people actually do it. So that's the one thing that I would like to bring up.
Councilmember Honor Law.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sorry. I know you're trying to get this to move forward. I want to point out to me that it seems obvious that this, I'm sorry, the disagreement isn't whether to help, but
Right.
it's,
I'm sorry, Councilmember Hunter, Councilmember Chance, you left your mic on, please.
Oh, sorry.
sorry, I thought maybe mine wasn't on. The disagreement isn't whether to help, but how to help and who does it. That seems to be what we're fighting. I mean, I think some of us were maybe I better not say that. It seems like I'll just let that go. So I believe the public should control the public taxpayer money is where I lie. That's why I kind of like the way this is set up a little more. Also, I've heard a few things that I thought doing another program with larger city money is what's on the agenda tonight. And the current CDC program, I think they both then wouldn't that overlap the PPP? Did I understand that correctly? So I was a little concerned with the current CDC program because all that then would overlap. And then the CDC, I thought it says it's in their programs, it's a pay it forward program. I thought it then went back and funded, the money then went back to them. And that's why we thought it was seed money. Was that not true? And then lastly, my last point, Ashley, and I don't want to kick this down, Councilmember Chance. I don't want to kick this down. I'm just thinking, I know when I ran, my big issue was to make sure we kind of stopped cronyism and restored integrity, typos of thing. So that's the only reason why I'm bringing this back up. I know you want to be clean too. I'm thinking I'm bringing it up so we can all state it. And I thank you for your statement before. My only concern, and hopefully this ain't nitpicking, that I'm concerned about, if you own the building and a downtown business receives that money and you're the landlord, they'd use that money to pay you rent. So you'd still be receiving that money. So I don't know how you fix that, but I'm saying it still muddies it. And I don't know what we can do. It just what kind of came to mind that you being a landlord. So hopefully that's not nitpicking. I'm just saying, I know you want to be as clean as the rest of us. And I don't know, maybe somebody's got a solution of what we can do for that. Thank you.
Councilmember Chance, you may respond.
Sure, I appreciate that. Yeah, this is, for the people watching, this has probably been the crux of the 14-day delay. And I made a decision 17 years ago to be a small business owner in Mason. Why? Because one, I love Mason. I live in downtown Mason. But if you want me to stand down, I went on record. I'll say it. Is this my third time? Yeah, 100%. We won't accept any of these funds. Again, I don't know if I agree with that, if I should be penalized for being a business owner, but that's fine. I mean, like I said, I know eco development won't, if Chuck Failer, who owns Adesso 100%, if he applies for it, that's up to him, how he spends his money. I can't speak for Chuck. You might want to ask him because he's the one that owns Adesso. I don't. So if you want to, you can go talk to Chuck and see what he has to say. But if you think that's out of line, that's your opinion. But again, I will stand down and say I will not accept a dime from this. Okay, so that's again, I was waiting for this to come up. I wish we could have had this discussion back on March 30th, and I would have said the exact same thing then. But I guess this is how it has to roll.
Councilmember Honderlo.
Thank you, Mayor. I missed my opportunity to also say, I will not participate and try to get any of this money or funding or grant money from any of these things that we passed tonight either. I will remove myself because I'm going to be voting on them. Thank you. And Councilmember Chance, I appreciate that. I'm sure it's only me that maybe and maybe other people want to add, and jump in on what they think about that, but I appreciate that. It means a lot.
Vice Mayor.
Mayor, I probably should go on record, I guess, because I am a small business owner in Mason also. I have a law office right downtown, Mason, the Batchy Law Firm that I work for. So I certainly will go on record to say we will not accept any of this money through the program, and hope that it helps those small businesses that need the money. So certainly that's the intent. I think of the amendment is even talking about small businesses that have been negatively affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. I think that's the qualifier. If you're a small business that hasn't been affected, this isn't the fund for you, but we're trying to reach out to help those businesses that have been affected to obtain some immediate help until we can figure out how else to get involved, and until that federal program kicks in and really helps work. That's where the real help.
Councilmember Nelson.
I just want to say real quick, none of us can take the money because it will be against the law. We've already participated in this discussion, so legally, none of us can't. So let's stop talking about us because it's not about us. It's about the small businesses. But one thing that I wanted to point out with Councilmember Honerlaw, he talked about the Pay It Forward program, which I think is wonderful. If the companies who receive the money pay it back, it stays in a fund for this exact kind of an event. It's in a separate fund. And of course, the city has the ability and probably will be auditing this. You know, this isn't something we're just going to give money away and not make sure that it's properly used. But that money that is collected will be invested and it will be into a fund. So if the economy ever dips again, they have their own economic fund available to provide for the small businesses. So it's not money that's going to be used for the CDC's personal interest. It's going to be set aside for situations with recessions.
Councilmember Bradburn.
I can stand a recession. I don't know if I can stand a pandemic.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
I can stand a recession. I don't know if I can stand a pandemic. Because I think this is going to be a little more than a recession. That's all I've got to say. I'm done.
Okay. All right, is everybody, oh, we've got one more. Councilmember Stricula.
Sorry, just another couple comments, I guess, on the amendment, probably directed to Vice Mayor Guild. Again, I like the idea of this being a first step. Would you be open, Vice Mayor, to it being $160,000, but not the gift card program? Because I think we've talked about how that's not probably the best option or not going to work very well. Is that something that we can change? Would you be open to that, Vice Mayor? Because that I think would be the piece that I think would be more beneficial for me, and I would be willing to vote for it as a first step if we got rid of the gift card part.
Yeah, and Mayor, if I can respond to that, so I certainly believe we should keep it the way it is currently drafted as a gift card program. What we do with those gift cards once they're acquired is something we can decide as a city moving forward. But I think that's the best way to get the funds out into the community initially, and then we can decide from there what to do with it.
And then
So
businesses that don't, thank you, Vice Mayor. And then businesses that don't do gift cards, are they just out of the program?
Yeah,
I know we can't help everybody, and even the $500,000 wasn't going to be able to help everybody, but it was a little bit more open as far as types of businesses and things like that could come in and still service oriented, things along those.
I guess I'll leave it up to the city or the CDC, whoever's going out and acquiring those gift cards, or what some kind of, however they, I don't know that you need to create new gift card programs or they don't have them, but some way that they acknowledge a obligation for future services that they have received in light of the funds that they're receiving. So I think that could be worked out. If you don't have an existing gift card program, I think there's some way that could be worked out and managed to get dollars to you if you really have needed for those dollars. And I would certainly encourage the CDC or the city to engage in those efforts on an ongoing basis.
Anyone else? Councilmember Nelson.
I'm sorry, I just want to say one more thing. I am really not for this program at all. I don't think getting gift cards is wise. You have a liability now, and that's what we're trying to avoid, is a liability. We're not going to get it out faster than we would if we use the CDC. The program's already there, available, proven effective. But I am going to vote on this because it's obvious that you have the votes for it and we're not going to change your mind, and it's better than not getting anything out to them. But I think it's just not a wise use of the 100. If we're going to spend 160, give them the 160 of cash so that they can actually use it and stay in business. so that we have these businesses when this pandemic is over. So I just wanted to justify my position. I'm going to vote for it, but it's really not a smart program at all in my eyes.
Okay. Ashley, you need to, sorry, Councilmember Chance, you need to mute your microphone.
Well, can I say, or can I say one more thing here as well?
Could you do it quickly? That's fine. You
Oh,
may.
well, you know, this is good. Well, like I said, man, I admire that we're having a discussion, and the call the question was, that was a little premature. You know, we're allowed to discuss this. This is good. This is healthy. I concur. I just, man, I want to keep this, I want to keep this above board. But what this seems to me is, I mean, we just took something that was 2020-43, a very well-baked, very well thought out program ready to go. And now we're taking this, and it just seems like, to me, this is like political credit legislation. And I echo what Councilmember Nelson said, like, this is not the smartest way of doing it. Folks, we've got a collective body here of pretty smart people. We should be able to come up with something better than this. And just to try to get the credit for passing this legislation doesn't mean to do something that is not as smart. So we got to just, I mean, I just wish we could just, come, because this is really a loan. If we look at this thing, this is pretty much a loan, because they are going to have to pay it back in services in the future, and it's not cash. And, again, though, Vice Mayor Gill, I admire you trying, but, I think Councilmember Stricula had this thing baked, ready to go on the rails, with a very formidable partner, smart partner that has, presidents of banks, has attorneys, has business executives that can administer this much better than the city, who is on a skeleton crew, who doesn't need burden with anything else. So yeah, I guess, do I want to do something right now? Heck yeah, I do. But when is this going to be done? I mean, we've got to come up with gift card programs. We want to infuse this. Can we do this by Friday, you think? Tomorrow? You think we can? Mr. Hanson, you think that's possible?
For council to adopt it as an emergency, it'll take 5 votes. I think the next step would be the CDC. I'm not sure if they're aware of this or amenable to this, and we would need to, and if they are, it can be done pretty rapidly, a service agreement, but we would need to draft a service agreement along these lines. And then, assuming those all happen in line, we could issue a check to the CDC pretty promptly, and then they would execute on their timeframe.
Yeah, in that chamber, in their May chamber document, I don't know if it does address. I don't think they signed up to do gift cards. I don't think that's their MO either. But hey, we'll see, right? I guess if that's our first step, and I hope we can get this thing done. But I don't remember seeing anything inside the chamber that signed up to say we are going to do gift cards. So again, it's a step, I guess. I don't know. It's not the smartest.
Councilmember Stricula, sorry, Butterfingers.
Just real fast, there's a quote actually in the letter that the chamber and the CDC sent to us. And this, I just want to make my position clear as well. And it says, in any moment of decision, the best thing you can do is the right thing. In my opinion, I think the original 2020-43 was the right thing. The next best thing is the wrong thing. The worst thing you can do is nothing. We've been doing the worst thing for the last 2, 3, 4 weeks. This is not the right thing. It's something. It's something. Well, it's a step in the right direction.
And listening and taking notes. First off, I'd like to say that we all care about small businesses. Every council member has expressed a desire to care for and support small businesses during this time. I'd like to talk about the funding that was described to be used for this initiative proposed by Councilmember Stricula and the CDC's proposal to grant $500,000 to the CDC to redistribute in the form of grants. And then they developed a pay it forward program, which hopes and expects that those grants would be returned to the CDC in an ongoing account that they can continue to use for their operations. That economic sustainability fund, we'll talk more about later, but that was a savings account that the city of Mason had for the city of Mason in the case of an emergency so that we could conduct our core services. I don't believe it was ever intended, not to my knowledge and experience on council, that money was intended or designed to use for external entities, but for our own entity to make sure that we can handle our own responsibilities in a time of economic emergency. Because we're talking about public dollars, I like the idea of the gift card program better because we're giving consumers an opportunity to have choice over the gift cards that they may purchase from the city or be given from the city. And I don't know exactly how we'll distribute those, but we're buying a service or a good with this contribution. And so that, in my view, is a better option to use for public dollars and to give the public, the city, control over those gift cards that we purchase. We would be using the CDC as the agent to offset some of our workload in order to execute the gift card program. In addition to that, honestly, I thought that's what you guys wanted in the beginning. And even the very first statement we got from the chamber, which I got April 27th, March 27th, I think. And it says, if the program is built around gift cards, the program should strive to ensure liability relief is built in through expiration days. So I think they were aware that that might be a possibility. And I kept hearing Hamilton, speed, time, amount. And we were saying, well, wait a second, what the CDC and Councilmember Stricula are proposing, it's highly different from what Hamilton proposed or Hamilton initiated, excuse me. I'm going to check back to my notes. I believe our economic development department and team needs to be part of this process. I think they were cut out from the beginning and they know our businesses and small businesses very well. And we need to give them a chance to serve our small businesses as well. And we're going to talk about that in the next agenda item. But this is just the beginning. This is the first start. And you'll remember I said, I think we need a short-term, long-term, and longer-term strategy so that we don't use all of our resources right out of the gate and not have anything left for these businesses when it's time for them to open back up. The Pay It Forward program. The more information has come out about what that really means. The CDC gave us a letter just 3 days ago with another draft of their proposal. And in that, they were much more clear about the Pay It Forward program. So what they're proposing basically, and this ordinance proposes that we grant $500,000 of public funds to the CDC. The CDC will then allocate it as it sees fit. In our letter, it says the MAID CDC will create an anonymous selection committee. The selection committee has sole discretion in the appointment of the funding. The idea with the Pay It Forward program, it clarifies, is that, you know, ideally, if a business is given a grant, that they would be able to give that money back at some point in time. But it doesn't go back to the public, it goes back to the CDC. And because it's public funding, I believe that should go, anything that we do should go back to the city, and the city should have control of those public dollars or resources. Now, the Pay It Forward program itself is a neat idea, but in my view, it's appropriate to fund that with seed money from the private sector. The CDC also made it very clear. We are asking the city of Mason to donate $500,000 to the Pay It Forward program. And they talk later about, with this seed money provided by the city of Mason, Mason would create a self-sustaining fund to help future businesses and subsequent adverse economic circumstances. The fund would be administered by the MAID CDC as described in the executive summary. So all along, I know I was expressing, I'm okay with helping small businesses. We're in an extraordinary time. But, you know, I was reserved with stating a clear position until we actually had council discussion on whether or not to table. And I said, I'm not comfortable with this magnitude of a grant going to a special interest group. So you're taking money and transferring it from the public to a small special interest group. They're a great group of people, but it is a special interest group. And we can't control how they decide which businesses to help with the grant program. And again, if any of these grants that they propose get paid back, they go back to the CDC, not to the public. So we now have established that seed money was the dual purpose there. So there was one purpose to help small businesses, and that's a great purpose, but there was a duplicity to that. There was another purpose to seed or to provide seed money with public money to the CDC to control and use in perpetuity. And I'm just not okay with that. So we're going to have to agree to disagree. We're at an impasse with the mechanism, at least with me. There was an ulterior motive there, or an ulterior goal.
That is absolutely false. That is absolutely false. And you cannot, no, I don't have the floor, but you're making accusations that are false.
They went
It's
out.
not okay.
They wrote it to us. The whole point, or part of the point, and I should have said dual motive, not duplicity. There was a dual motive to help small businesses, but also to fund the CDC with seed money. It's right here. We got this letter a few days ago. That is what that means. And we have to share facts with the public. So it was never for me about not helping small business. I want the city to control it. I want our economic development department to be giving us feedback and recommendations. And I want to use public money in that way. And that's my choice. That's my right. I don't know how you can argue that the CDC is not asking for seed money that it would keep and use for its own purposes. They want to help small businesses with it. But I don't know how you can argue that point when they have given us that in writing. Okay.
Did you just receive that?
We got that on April 10th, just 3 days ago. That
April
was
10th. And so that was your reasoning this whole time?
No, it was
You just
always
learned of it.
You're interrupting. You don't have the floor. And that
No,
was,
you just answered one of my questions.
I knew that there was a dual motive, but they finally now admitted that in writing.
Okay, can I talk? Can I have the floor, please?
Yes.
Do you know what the definition of the function of the MAID chamber or the MAID CDC is? Take a stab. Give it a valiant effort.
Tell me. I don't have that in front of me right now.
Well, I don't know that, but I can tell you what they do is they're advocates for small businesses. And you know what? That's smart for the city to partner with people that are advocates for the small business, because guess what, Kathy? You're not the smartest person. I'm not the smartest person. The city staff is not the smartest person. You know who the smartest person is? The people closest to the problem, the CDC MAID chamber. So if they want to take this, pay it forward, and we've talked about this for 2 years now. Here's the irony behind all of this. We've talked about this, and when I was on the downtown committee, we talked about funding the CDC for 2 years, and you've been an advocate of that. And now you're changing your mind because you didn't come up with the idea of this legislation. Call it what it is. It is absolutely, you didn't know about this until April 10th, but you're using this as your excuse for the past 2 weeks. Come on.
You're misconstruing my statements. I always felt in my gut that there was a dual motive, but I was careful not to make that assessment on a live stream. I was careful about the questions that I asked, but now it has been confirmed. There was a dual motive for this. We need to be clear about that. We have a disagreement on whether or not public funds should be used in that way, and you need to respect my opinion on that.
You were for it before.
As far as funding the CDC through the downtown committee, I don't ever recall being asked to fund them. They asked if we would give them feedback, and they were working on research project because they wanted to report to us on their recommendations for downtown and Deerfield development. And I'm trying to think the other point, did the CDC ever ask the finance committee for seed money? And what was the response? Eric, could you?
Yeah, Mr. Hanson, can you please address that? Because I know there's legislation in the past that we were funding the
You
CDC.
do not have the floor.
I asked the question.
I don't have the dates. It's probably over the last 2.5 years, excuse me. There were requests and there was an ongoing dialogue about timing and amounts. But yes, the CDC was looking for startup funding. Their timing was both looking at public partners, but also private funding that they were accessing. They just want to do that in a fashion that was respectful to all the potential partners. So they were being very deliberative and strategic on how they requested the funding. But yes, they were interested in funding from the city.
Okay. Wow, I'm seeing lots of hands. Okay, let's start with Vice Mayor Guild, please.
Mayor, I appreciate the discussion, but I don't want to lose sight of the amendment that's on the table and helping our small businesses. The discussion is good, but it certainly doesn't go to providing the immediate help our small businesses need. So again, I'm going to call the question in terms of the amendment that I proposed to 2020-43.
Okay, thank you.
I think I would like to speak.
We're not acknowledged by the chair.
Well, then acknowledge me, please.
I am not ready to acknowledge you because we're still dealing with some other things. I waited a long time to get the floor. I've been very patient. So let's just hang on. I wanted to just reiterate, I said duplicity. I did not mean to say duplicity. I meant to say dual motive. There was a dual motive to it. Now we understand it a little bit better, but I wanted to be very careful with my comments and retract the term duplicity. And I apologize for that. That was a misspeak. Council Member Nelson, we really need to call the question. Is this quick?
Okay, well, I'm going to speak real quick because I think some of the statements that you made are so wrong. The CDC is a great partner to the city, and those are two totally different situations you're talking about. I was the chair of the finance committee, and they did come to us 2 years ago when they were starting to develop to look for money. That is so different from what this is, totally separate. When you say seed money right now, in this particular situation, for this $500,000 to be given to the small businesses, this is seed money to get that program going. Has nothing to do with using that money ever for any kind of operating expenses for the CDC. The paid forward program will allow individual or businesses to give that money back to the CDC, but the city manages that bank account. It's not managed by the CDC to use for operating expenses. It never was, it never will be. To say there's a motive behind this is horrible. I mean, I can't believe you're accusing the CDC of this. This is the CDC that we as the city asked the CDC, hey, can you help us create this program and can you manage it for us? They didn't come to us and say, hey, let me take 500 grand and distribute it as we see fit. I mean, and they're coming up with ways to quantify and qualify these businesses that the city is going to agree to. And it's going to be done in a way that any person who sits there at a table to decide what small business gets how much, you will get the same answer every single time. Doesn't matter who does it. It's not going to be, there's going to be strict set of rules on that. So, I mean, I think that those comments are really uncalled for. And I think the CDC is a great organization and there's no ulterior motive to this money. And if you really feel that way, then fine, let's have the city do it. Get rid of the CDC, have the city do it on their own and give $500,000 out to the residents. If you feel like there's something going on, then let's just remove the CDC and do it right with the city and give $500,000. But let's vote on that then.
Okay, I need to respond to that as best I can. We're going to get to the next agenda item and we'll discuss that. I believe that the city of Mason is equipped to handle this. We have a community investment corporation at the city of Mason, and we can use that to do some of the things that we are going to work on developing. We need some time to develop a strong program. the CDC clearly states in its letter, I'll read it again, with the seed money provided by the city of Mason, Mason would create a self-sustaining fund to help future business in subsequent adverse economic circumstances. So when I said operations, I wasn't talking about operational expenses. And I don't believe the city would be controlling that account. It's all at the sole discretion of the CDC. And there is not public oversight over that. Once we hand it over, we don't have the right to have oversight over it. It's controlled by a nonprofit. Okay, so I think I've responded to everything. There's no doubt that we have great people at the Maid Chamber. I'm just not comfortable with this. And so, in the CDC, I'm just not comfortable with the proposal as it was in its original form, I should say. And there were other things, well, I won't go into all that. I think I'm gonna wrap it up. Let's go ahead and call the question. Eric, could you please take the roll? And this is the motion to amend as set forth by Councilmember Gill. And did we have a second on that? We did. Okay, so it's time to call the roll. Do I need a motion? Okay, I'm so sorry.
Councilmember Hunterlaw,
Yes.
Mayor Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Chance,
Well, I'm sorry they bastardized your ordinance, but doing nothing is the worst thing that we could do. You're exactly right, Councilman Stricula. So I'm going to vote yes, but this isn't over.
Councilmember Bradburn,
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb,
Yes.
mute.
Okay, I'm looking at the clock. It is 9:01 p.m. Could we take about 3-minute break? Okay, we're going to take a 3-minute break and we will be back.
Jason, can you?
Eric? When you have a moment, I don't know if Jeff is there.
I'm here.
Hi, did we adopt the ordinance as amended? Do we need to go back and adopt the ordinance now that we've adopted the amendment?
Yes.
I just want to make sure we did that right. So yes, we need to go back and adopt ordinance 2020-43 as amended.
Yes, and actually, you don't even need a new motion or anything. The ordinance 43 has already been read twice. It had a motion to adopt with a second before it was tabled. Now it's been amended, so the only thing left to do would be to take a vote on the final adoption as amended.
Okay, I'm going to have you explain that when we come back. I'm ready anytime.
Jason, I think we're all here.
Good to go.
Okay, we are back. We have a loose end to tie up. Jeff, can you explain what we need to do next?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. At this point, just as a reminder, ordinance 2020-43, it has already had 2 readings. There was a motion to adopt and a second before it was tabled. And it came off the table and the motion to amend has now been passed. So at this point, you still need to take a roll call vote on the adoption of ordinance 2020-43, but it will be as it was just amended. So you don't need a new motion or anything. You just need to take a roll call vote on the adoption of the ordinance. But what you are adopting is this amended version.
Okay, Mr. Hanson, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Chance,
Yes, unfortunately.
Councilmember Bradburn. Your mute is on.
Yes, yep, yes,
Councilmember Stricula,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb,
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw,
Yes.
Mayor Grossman.
Yes. Okay, item number,
Mayor,
yes.
Mayor,
Yes,
before we, now that we've adopted that, before we leave entirely, can I make 2, just so it doesn't go unsaid? I'm anticipating, I understand council wants to move rapidly and discussing service agreement with the CDC. 2 thoughts that I would be, I anticipate discussing with them unless there is objection from council. It is typical in these type of arrangements and the arrangements with other cities that there is an administrative portion for the group to cover administrative costs. I would anticipate with the CDC, instead of, there will be costs beyond just the gift card transaction. I would anticipate some amount there being provided to the CDC to cover those type of costs. Secondly, on the gift cards, and if this isn't helpful, just forget that I said it. It may, some of the concerns raised, it may be an opportunity if the gift cards were also tied with, if it's a $10 gift card to go towards a $20 purchase, kind of half off gift cards at a defined amount, that may help the CDC. It may help some of the lingering liability. Part of the advantage of gift cards for businesses is to drive additional purchases down the road. So if that's helpful, that may be something to discuss with the CDC and with the businesses.
Just check their motive first.
I'm sorry.
Councilmember Chance, you're out of order. Okay, item number 8, which is ordinance 2020-46. I need a motion to read by title only.
so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
No.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I would
let's
like this read out in full, please, so that the residents can hear it.
That would be fine.
Well, Mayor, at this point, you had a motion and a second to read by title only. I think perhaps the best thing to do is take a roll call vote so you can see what the actual vote is. And as with all of these procedural motions, it does take 5 votes to suspend that rule and allow for it to be read by title only.
Okay.
I'm sorry, can I just clarify? Are we talking 2020-46?
Yes,
Okay,
and this is
just
just a
making sure.
motion to read by title only.
I don't want that.
Okay, we're going to call the roll, please.
On the motion to read by title only, Councilmember Nelson,
No.
Councilmember Chance,
Wait, no, yeah, I'd like for this to be read out. That's a good move there, Diane. I think that's smart.
Councilmember Bradburn,
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula,
It's pretty short. I think Jeff would be okay to read it. No.
Vice Mayor Gilb, your mute is on. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I would vote no. Let's read the ordinance.
Councilmember Hunterlaw,
Yes.
Mayor Grossman,
No. Okay, Jeff, you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. This is ordinance 2020-46, authorizing the city manager to establish business recovery programs, back to work programs, and enter into service agreements in a total amount not to exceed $1,500,000 and declaring an emergency. Whereas in order to create and preserve jobs and employment opportunities and to improve the economic welfare of the people of the state, it has been determined to be in the public interest and a proper public purpose for the state or its political subdivisions to engage in certain economic development activities. And whereas the City Council believes that it is critical to assist the business recovery of the City of Mason small business community as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and to provide support, relief, and encourage economic development activities in the City of Mason. And whereas in order to provide such assistance, Council hereby declares it to be a proper public purpose to provide funds in order to establish proper and relevant business recovery programs. And whereas the business recovery programs established by the City of Mason will be used solely to further the City of Mason's mission within the City of Mason, and that such expenditure will result in a demonstrable benefit to the City of Mason that can be substantiated with evidence. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Mason, members thereto concurring, Section 1, that the city manager is hereby authorized to establish business recovery programs, back to work programs in order to assist Mason businesses to get back to work. Section 2, that the city manager is hereby authorized to enter into service agreements for amounts not to exceed the amount appropriated for such programs to provide assistance to the businesses. Section 3, that this ordinance is hereby declared to be an emergency measure necessary for the preservation of the public peace, health, safety, and welfare, and shall be effective immediately upon its adoption. The reason for said declaration of emergency is the need to authorize the funding at the earliest possible date in order to immediately begin the business recovery efforts needed as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Mayor, you're mute. Mute.
Okay, Jeff has read the entire document, the entire ordinance. Eric Hansen has some discussion points for us. Eric?
This was an issue that was discussed in the Finance Committee of about a week and a half ago, referenced at a Finance Committee held earlier today. Councilmember Gilb had asked for legislation to be generated and placed on the agenda for tonight. So I would, I think that, I'm sorry, Vice Mayor Gilb probably could speak to this further.
Thank you for the, and so I did ask that this ordinance be drafted after we had discussions in the Finance Committee. Certainly, we are concerned about the efforts to bring Mason business, preserve Mason business, number one, bring Mason business back to life as the stay-at-home order is lifted and we are able to get back to work. That's going to take a tremendous effort on behalf of the city to get that done. And certainly the ordinance we just adopted moments ago was an initial step to try to get some cash into the community. This ordinance is geared in the direction of forward-looking. What do we need to be doing as a city to even move further to provide support to our small business community? And as we come out of the stay-at-home order, as Ohio comes back to work, as Mason comes back to work, what are the kinds of things that we need to be doing to take a bigger step, and then even a bigger step to revitalize and regenerate our community and keep it moving forward. And that's the spirit of what this ordinance is intended to do. And I certainly would urge council to adopt the same.
We're not quite yet to council discussion. If you could hang on. Eric, is that all you have to share on this?
I didn't have anything else prepared, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
Just a real quick question. When can I make an amendment to this?
We're not there yet. I need a
Okay.
motion to suspend the rule and adopt after the first reading.
I would make that motion.
Is there a
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
No,
Yes.
Okay, I need to call the roll for the all in favor part.
All in favor part?
Councilmember Chance?
Councilmember Nelson?
Didn't have a.
no, I would like a second reading.
Okay,
Member Chance?
Yeah,
Councilmember Chance?
is there a way, when do I'd like to make an amendment to this. Because
Laud-
we already have had it, we
please,
had a first reading and it has a time.
Councilmember Chance, please let
Jeff, can you?
address that.
Well, right now, there is a motion and a second on the floor. The motion is to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after this one reading. That's the only thing that's on the floor and that's available for discussion right now. Depending on the outcome of this motion, then we could entertain other motions potentially. But right now, that's the motion that's on the floor.
Sure, okay.
Councilmember Chance?
No.
Councilmember Bradburn?
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula?
No.
Vice Mayor Gilb?
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw?
Yes.
Mayor Grossman?
Yes. Jeff?
Mayor, pursuant to the charter, any motions like this that are to suspend rules required by the charter require 5 affirmative votes. This motion only received 4 affirmative votes. So the motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after one reading fails, which means what just happened was we had a first reading of ordinance 2020-46.
Okay.
And it would be back on the next agenda for a second reading.
Okay, so if an amendment were proposed, that would happen at the time of the second reading?
Yes, Mayor, typically what would happen, much like we did with the prior ordinance, once ordinance 2020-46 received a second reading, typically there'd be a motion to adopt, and typically a second. And during the discussion period on the adoption of the ordinance is when you would, historically, that's when you entertain motions to amend. Really exactly like we just did on the ordinance prior.
Great, thank you. Okay, I hope that answers your questions, Councilmember Chance. Moving on, it's time for old and new business. I'd like to remind council we need to speak one at a time. And I don't know how you feel about limiting time. We can, why don't we just start? I mean, your screen is probably different from mine, so I'll just try to catch your hands as we go, and I'll go last. Vice Mayor Gilb, I thought I saw your hand.
Yeah, so someone is old and new business. Certainly, we just pushed ordinance 2020-46 to the next meeting for a second reading. So we're not going to be able to immediately implement any of the relief that's provided under that ordinance. But certainly we just adopted the amendment to 43. We just provided $160,000 of immediate support to the community. I just want to again urge, encourage, ask our city manager to help any of our existing small businesses that have any difficulties with applying under the CARES Act to certainly reach out to the city and provide. I think Eric has put together a team that can actually provide some support to help people obtain all the relief that's available, not only under the Federal CARES Act program, but any other state or federal programs that are out there to provide relief. Certainly that kind of relief is going to be much more than we as a city are ever going to be able to provide to our small business community. But I certainly see tremendous opportunity in the ordinance that we just read, 2020-46, in the provision of not less than $1.5 million as we bring people back to work, as we revitalize our economy and bring our businesses back into operation. So I certainly just wanted to comment that we move swiftly to bring that into fruition. Thank you.
Councilmember Nelson.
Yes, I just wanted to give a couple updates on the state of Ohio. And I know that several small business owners are having some issues with rent payments. And I just wanted to let them know that Governor DeWine has issued an executive order that requires the landlords to suspend for at least 90 days rent payments for small business commercial tenants facing financial hardship due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And landlords are placed on a moratorium on evictions for small business commercial tenants for at least 90 days. And lenders providing commercial real estate borrowers with mortgage loans an opportunity for a forbearance for at least 90 days as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. I also wanted to give you a couple more little updates from Ohio that may help our small businesses, since I know that they're tuning in right now. There is a Keep Ohio Connected program, which was designed for businesses and residents to stay connected during the pandemic. So internet providers are pledging that they will not terminate the service to any residential or small business consumer for failure to pay during the pandemic. They will also waive late fees for those consumers, and they will also open up their Wi-Fi hotspots to anyone who is in need. And this should help with our schools supporting the children. If you are struggling and unable to provide internet service for your child to log in and do their homework, please reach out, because that there is a program for free Wi-Fi for you. Also, our small businesses, you can defer your insurance, health insurance premiums for 60 days, which can help with your cash flow. And the deadline, as most of you know, for the IRS tax filing, but it's both federal and state income tax withholding. It is not due until July 15th, and that includes, there's no penalty or interest for payment. And also that includes the individual income tax, school district income tax, pass-through entity and fiduciary income tax, and the municipal net profit tax. This also applies to the first and second quarter payments. So you don't have to have opted in to the state's centralized tax collection program for these extensions. And last but not least, if you are a bar or a restaurant owner and you are not familiar with the liquor buyback program from the state, you will want to go to www.coronavirus.ohio.gov for more information. Also, you should go to that website. There is a lot more information on there and what the state is doing to help us, both individuals and business owners. So it's a really good site Again, it's www.coronavirus.ohio.gov. That was the first thing I had. And the second thing, I thought we were, Jeff, we were able to discuss before we voted for the second reading, we should have been able to discuss it. We kind of skipped over that. Is that correct?
The council discussion on the motion to allow for adoption after one reading?
Right, are we allowed to discuss at all 2020-46, the ordinance? Can we
Well,
do?
the only question that was on the floor, the motion that was on the floor was whether you should suspend the rule and allow for adoption after one reading. So, I mean, we've already moved past that, but if there had been discussion at that time, it would have been limited to just that. You would not have been able to discuss the merits of the ordinance. You would only discuss the motion that was on the floor, which should you have one reading or two, essentially.
Okay, I think with the amount of money that's being proposed in this ordinance, it would be really nice to have a work session on it so that we can see what it's about, because the ordinance is extremely vague with no information being given. And this is $1.5 million. So Mayor, if we could call a work session on this, I think that would be really helpful. Instead of rushing through and voting, I think that the public should know what we're spending $1.5 million on and fully understand it.
I'd be happy to call a work session on that. And I can appreciate your request. That makes a lot of sense. And Eric, perhaps you could speak to this and what that means as far as a $1.5 million expense, timing, things like that, or do you want to wait until we're in a work session format? Maybe we should do that.
Good idea.
Good idea. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, you should be muted. Okay, is that all, Councilmember?
Yes.
No, I do have something.
Okay, she's finished. You're finished, Councilmember Nelson? Thank you. Okay, Councilmember Chance.
I feel like I'm back in the 4th grade sometimes with you. But hey, to Councilmember Gilb's point, yeah, you're right. We need to do something quick, right? And so, Councilmember Nelson, thank you for bringing up the work session. I know it's too late to do it tomorrow night, but if we can do it Wednesday morning, let's get it done Wednesday morning, because I read through this 2020-46. This is economic development. Again, why we are sitting here having the crisis of a lifetime, let's talk about economic development with $1.5 million. The public's not dumb. They're seeing through this and reading through this. So I am all about the work session. And also I would like to bring this thing up because what we witnessed tonight was politics, folks. And this was just, it is what it is. It's a landscape. It's a game that people like to play. So what I've done, and I think we all have agreed, I think Councilmember Hunterlaw and I know and Mayor Grossman have a tough time with me being a small business owner, but it's in my DNA, it's in my blood, and that's what I do. So what I have done, because we have sat on our hands for 30 days,
Councilmember Chance.
We're allowed to assign motives. You mentioned that tonight.
Is giving you the look. That is not an appropriate comment to make about Councilmember Hunterlaw or me.
Well, you guys, I mean, you brought it up, so. Well, okay, I'll get Jermaine. Let's get Jermaine to the topic. I'm gonna get Jermaine. So here's what I've done. I went out and because, like I said, this is politics, folks, and I've been very clear that this is not a red or a blue or whatever it is. This is a red, white, blue thing. And so what I've done, I went out with my marketing guys. I paid for it out of my own money. And I did donate my April and May salary, council salary, and I bought the first t-shirts. Look, see that? T-shirts. And the small business owners have done an excellent job. We sold about 150 of them so far, which is good, but I need to sell 100,000 of these. So I want the public to know that you can go to united2support.com and buy a t-shirt. Eric, is there any way that we could put that on the site? 100% of the proceeds will go to the CDC. I think it comes out to like $12.65 per shirt goes to the CDC. So I would like to make that, Eric, can I put that out there on the site to get that out and like we do the marketing with And whoever wants to oversee the budget and the bank account, you guys can do that as well. But is that something that I can do and market via our marketing channels? And by the way, I do want to make an announcement. This is going 100% to small businesses. I trust the CDC innately. They can take the money, they know it, they understand it. And so all of this money is going 100% to small businesses. And so is that something I can do?
But we can certainly link to the chamber. And I would
Okay.
assume as part of this service agreement and providing access, we can link to them.
Sure. Yeah, so I would just like, I know there's a lot of people watching this that, you can go out and like I said, I've partnered with 2 local mason companies, Friday Threads and Cincy Apparel to do this. Thanks to them, I had Minuteman Press literally printed me 300 of the postcards, which you'll see here. You will get one of these with every shirt. And then it explains a little bit about what's going on. So I'd encourage everybody, let's get out and buy some of these because, we might have limited this thing to 160,000. If we go out and sell, 100,000 t-shirts, we'll do pretty good. So I just wanted to make that mention. And Eric, maybe offline, me and you can talk about marketing efforts via the chamber. I can take that up directly with them. I don't know. I don't care either way, but I'll follow your lead on that. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Councilmember Chance. Is there anyone else? Councilmember Bradburn.
I don't know if it's new business or whatever, but Eric and I are super busy, but I would like to call a committee meeting, the safety committee meeting, and have some preliminary discussions on what we think we're going to have to do in the future to restart the recreation center, community center, distancing, so on and so forth. I've had some communications with a doctor who I respect over in Indiana. There's even discussions that they're still concerned about the spread of the virus just by fans, just by air conditioning units. And I know that we have a number of fans in the community center. I know that people go in and work out on the exercise bikes. I've seen room full of people, and I've seen fans. And I think we need to possibly bring in our tri-health experts that are working with us in regards to that. Because I know that the community center is a focal point, but we need to make sure it's safe because we don't want to say that, hey, I attended this event and I think this is where I got it. So, Eric, if you go ahead and send out a possible time for the mayor and Josh and myself to go ahead and meet and have a little discussion in regards to that, I'd appreciate it. I don't have anything else.
Thank you, Councilmember Bradburn. Anyone else? Councilmember Honorlaw.
Thank you, Mayor. I did get out in the community and talk to some other business owners recently, and was able to feel their pain of what's been going on, and during this tragic time that economically this is affecting all of our businesses, and it's just been devastating to hear the stories and see what people are going through. I'm glad we're able to get something passed tonight. That's at least a start. I'd like to see us. I'm glad we're not rushing through on something, but I'm glad to see that we're at least moving forward on something else. None of us would have planned for something like this, and it's been affecting all of us and been tragic. We need to remember we are all in this together. Dang, I had a quote I wanted to say. I had a couple quotes I liked, and I didn't know if I could read. Abraham Lincoln said, "I'm a firm believer in the people. If given the truth, they can be depended upon to meet any national crisis." And JFK said, "In a time of domestic crisis, men of goodwill and generosity should be able to unite regardless of party or politics." So I thought that was good. I had another note. I actually was going to say this before Councilmember Stricula mentioned the quote that the chamber put on. I just can't get my head wrapped around that quote, that it's better to do something wrong than to do something nothing at all. And I said, there's never an excuse for doing the wrong thing. I always want to do the right thing for Mason, I thought. So anyway, I just thought that was a little better and we were all trying to do the right thing. Personally, you know, my construction business has not been receiving any new calls for work since crisis started. I had a huge project, one of the biggest ever, that was close to signing that got put on hold. You know, we're all in this waiting pattern. I do have a lawn care business that started, and luckily it just started a couple of weeks ago. You know, unfortunately, I don't start receiving any revenue of that until probably mid-May. So, I mean, we're all hurting. We're all trying to struggle through this time. I did have clients that came to me that said, you know, because of this crisis that's going on, they were going to cancel the lawn care service. And so I let them know that I would take care of that for them. And that's just, I think, an example that was something if we all do, if we don't have money, if we don't have what we can do, if we can at least still provide service to help one another, even though we ourselves are hurting. I think that's something, I mean, I had a lady start crying over it. And so I just think if we all come together and pick up and maybe stop picking on each other so much and come together, we can try to make progress here. I just want to say, if anyone knows anyone that's elderly or that's sick with this virus and not able to take care of their lawn, I will personally come take care of their lawn at no cost. And so if they want to contact the city to get my information, that somebody that's in Mason, I want to be able to help them in that way. I also wanted to cover a topic that was unfortunate, but I've been misquoted, and it's been very disheartening for me to have people send me stuff about telling me that I'm being accused of saying something that I've not said. And what's worse is that it's another council member was saying on the radio that I said it. And so I'm hoping that, you know, I mean, we can maybe get an apology about the words that were stuck on me that now social media is ramming down and putting on me. I think that was very unfair, very unfortunate. So I want to be clear, I never, and I would never use any term that Councilmember Chance or Mr. Sloan falsely accused me of saying on the radio and is now falsely spread widely across on social media. It's unimaginable to me that a sitting council member would attach such a term to me regarding our small businesses. I can prove to everyone that I never said what I'm being accused of. There's quotes of, I went back and read everything. Of course, I never said anything like that. Everybody knows that. I think the problem is that it didn't just damage, it damaged innocent people. It didn't, not just me personally, which maybe that's what you're wanting to do, or maybe me politically, maybe that's really what you were trying to do, because it's just been very sad, but it's affected my businesses. Not only do I have to overcome this virus, but now I have to come to the negative effect of such hate that came out accusing me of something that was completely and utterly false. So it's not affect just my businesses, but my brother has my same last name. You know what I mean? So it affects his businesses. It's very unfortunate. And I don't know if maybe this was the intent of the council member. I'd like to not assign motive, but I can't imagine why that came out. And I'm hoping that he would take this opportunity to apologize and clarify this, to say that I would never call any business what he's accused me of saying.
Sure. Yeah, can you, I know that's directed to me, Mayor. Can I talk?
Councilmember Hunterlaw, are you finished?
I am.
Okay, yes, you may talk.
Okay, good. So Councilmember Hunterlaw, what did you think I said? What are you accusing me of coming out of my mouth?
Councilmember Chan, I think you know the answer to that question. Why don't
Yeah, I
you-
know what the answer is, but he's assigning that I said something I did not. I said he's called it a handout and then a bailout, then a bailout, then a handout. Are you denying that you said that?
How
Are you
did you?
denying that?
Mayor,
That is
Are you
not.
denying that?
Whoa, hold on, referee here. You know what you said and what you confirmed on a national radio program.
And I would do it again because I told the truth. He
That-
said he called it a handout and then a bailout, and then a bailout to a handout. I don't know what order.
Having a hard time answering this question. He doesn't want to provide that unfortunate soundbite. You need to own it.
I will provide it on my go to chance for council. I will put the soundbite out there for everybody to hear what I said.
What
Hey,
is it?
and Councilmember Hunterlaw, guess what? I know how you feel. About a year ago, I had the FBI, the Bureau of Criminal Investigations, the Warren County Prosecutor, the Ohio Ethics Commission, and everybody looking into this stuff that was absolutely false. So you're worried about being called names. What about having the Warren County Prosecutor notified, Bureau of Criminal Investigations, the FBI, Warren County Prosecutor, Ohio Ethics Commission, over nothing but personal vendettas? So I'm sorry if your feelings were hurt that you got, I didn't call you the name. You said it yourself. Bailout, handout, handout, bailout.
That's
I don't
not
know
the
what
word.
order it was, but you said it. I didn't
Mayor-
say it though. Whatever he said,
Mayor,
whatever he said, I can't control what he says. And guess what? I'll go on the show again tomorrow and have a conversation. If there's an apology, I'll have the apology. So maybe I'll do that tomorrow. So thank you for bringing it to my attention.
Thank you. Yes, actually, Mr. Sloan asked you if I said these things and you said yes, basically, that I used that term that everybody, I'm not even going to repeat it on social media. And it wasn't the two that you keep talking about. So it's
Bail
something
out the handout,
different.
hand out the bailout. That's what I said.
That's not it. It's something else. And you know it, and you said it, and everybody's talking about it. And it's all because you said, I said that. And this is the opportunity you have to say, you're sorry for putting those words in my mouth that I never said.
I said bailout, handout,
No,
handout, bailout.
No, that's
what
not
I
it.
said.
And you
So
know,
what did I say? Tell me. Tell me what I said. I want to hear it.
welfare queen. Remember those two words?
That did not come out of my mouth.
Oh, do you want to?
Scott Sloan might have said it. I can't tell him if he wants to define a handout to a bailout to a handout to that. I can't help what he defines something.
You asked
That's
him
on
if
him.
that's
That's
what I
not on
wanted,
me.
and you said
Here, I'll
yes.
call Scott and see if he'll make. I'll see if Scott's willing to make an apology to you. Okay.
Right.
So if that might make you feel better.
And you, I still.
So hey, but I'm not here to. I apologize if I hurt you in any way, man. That's not what I'm here to do, and that's not what I want to do. But you know what? I'm not sitting here to play politics either, and that's what you guys like to play. And we absolutely, you guys seen it, you guys witnessed it, we watched it. We go into executive session, we come right out, and you guys have canned statements to read. That's playing politics. That is putting that's politics over people, and you're okay with that, there, Mr. Hunter.
Yeah,
that's good.
I make notes. Well, that went well.
You made notes while we were in executive
I'm so sorry.
session.
I'm executive session now. No.
You made notes in executive session. I'm done with this. I mean, I'm sorry your feelings got hurt. How's that?
Thank you.
Are you satisfied?
If I can finish, yeah, that's when the debate is lost, slander becomes the tool of the losers with Socrates. I do want to apologize to the public.
Good quote. I was proud of you for quoting Democrat earlier too.
Councilmember Chance, Councilmember Hunterlaw has the floor.
I still have the floor. Thank you. We took a lot of time to apologize to the public for things, the way we handled meetings. So maybe I will take this chance to apologize for Councilmember Chance's professionalism and how he attacks fellow council members, because that's not how we're to act as this group. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Stricula, please.
I just have a couple of things. First, I think the only person who's apologized to the public on this council is me publicly. And that was on the Wednesday, April 1st meeting for how I handled myself. The quote that you referenced, Councilmember Honorlaw, that I read is about making a decision. It's about doing something and not just sitting back on our hands, which is exactly what we did for the last 4 weeks now. And I'm amazed that we took so much time on something that was very specific, that was a third of the value that this 2020-46 is. And the people who wanted to table it, the members who on this council that wanted to push on it and wait and get public opinion and all these other things, are the same members who voted to adopt it after the first reading. Shame on you. Shame on you. Not rushing through something, and yet you want to rush through this that's giving a blank check to the city. We'll talk about it at the second reading and the work session, but shame on you.
Anyone else? Okay, I prepared some statements. I typically do. in response to the goings on in the past weeks. Before I start, I just again misspoke earlier in our meeting. I apologize profusely. I misspoke and said duplicity. I meant to say dual motive. They're similar words. I did not mean that. I also want to thank and acknowledge the hard work of the Chamber of Commerce and our Community Development Corporation volunteers. And so I just wanted to get that out before I forget. And I'm going to read a statement to summarize some of the thoughts I've had and experiences. When I became mayor just this past December, I hoped to promote a new era of cooperation, respect, and professionalism on this council. I wanted to encourage collaboration, compromise, and a spirit of goodwill. I wanted to foster an environment where all 7 members of council could work as a team of 7 on behalf of Mason and to serve our city with distinction. To accomplish this, I informed my council colleagues of this important goal, requested training on the rules, and led by example. This effort also depended on the cooperation of my colleagues. Recent events have demonstrated that I cannot accomplish what I set out to do. Unfortunately, despite my efforts, certain members of this council refuse to work collaboratively, follow the rules of decorum, or respect their fellow members. To avoid unseemly publicity and in an attempt to win over recalcitrant council members who have repeatedly violated the rules of decorum, I have not responded to their past lies, misconduct, false allegations, and misstatements, all made in public. Recent events now require that the misconduct of these council members must be confronted, exposed, and addressed. I will respond to the members of this council who have engaged in character assassination, defamation, and deceit to harm me and others on this council, which ultimately harms the public. While I know that disagreements would occur on this council, as is common for all political bodies, I have wanted to enforce and insist that our members comply with the rules of respect and decorum. These rules allow differing opinions and passionate disagreements, but it is never appropriate to lie, attack character, or impugn motive. I warn all members not to do that, to abide by Robert's rules and to treat others as you want to be treated. A failure to do so can lead to censure or even expulsion from this council. This does not mean that members who have been lied about, whose characters have been assaulted, motives impugned, and who have been falsely attacked are unable to defend themselves. They can, and this will be allowed as permitted by our rules of conduct, and we just saw a demonstration of that. However, when we do respond, responses need to be factual, respectful, and not conclusory or filled with characterizations. Please don't violate the rules that others on this council have repeatedly broken. Today, we addressed and voted upon Ordinance 43, the Mason-Deerfield Township Chamber of Commerce and its relatively recently formed Mason-Deerfield Chamber of Community Development Corporation, proposed legislation submitted for council consideration. They made a proposal which was with legislation. I'm sorry, I think I got that a little bit wrong there. On March 30th, 2020, just 2 weeks ago. And I would add to that, we had some comments about things taking too long. I say, there's always time to get something right. Made and the CDC conceded in a statement written to council just 3 days ago, which I've mentioned, that one of the primary purposes of Ordinance 43 was to provide seed money to the CDC for its future hope for operations or mission in support of small businesses. The CDC has been seeking seed money for some time. Regardless of the propriety of that effort and the worthiness of the goal to help Mason's small business community during the current crisis, we are mindful that a major purpose of 2020-43 was to provide seed money. And the chamber and the CDC are using—
That's false, Mayor. I'm sorry, but that is false. That is, you are now assigning motive to me and what I propose. That is false.
You do not have the floor.
But you can't make false accusations and assign motive, which is exactly what you just did.
Not. They just directly stated in their statement to us just 3 days.
My proposal was not to provide them seed money.
Okay, your proposal, the ordinance. Okay, they are saying that it was. Okay.
But that's not what you said.
Sure, I have
you said my proposal.
respond.
You're
later.
assigning motive to what I did, which
No.
is saying that it wasn't to help small businesses.
That's not what I meant. The CDC and the Maid Chamber have said that they were seeking seed money.
That makes
You-
sense. So they're the evil ones. Okay.
Now mute your microphone. The current COVID-19 pandemic hit us all suddenly. Governor DeWine declared a statewide health emergency on March 9th. The president declared a national emergency on March 13th. Warren County activated its emergency operations on March 15th. The Ohio Department of Health closed restaurant operations except for carryout service on that same date, and then closed many other small business operations, culminating in the March 22nd, 2020 stay-at-home order. On or about March 20th, the city of Hamilton, which has a population of 62,000, roughly double our size, announced that it was giving $300,000 to its local community development corporation for the purchase of gift cards from certain participating small businesses. We were informed that this effort would support small businesses located in or near new developed property in Hamilton, which it has invested in. And I'm not sure if that was a citywide program or not. I haven't been able to find the details on that. Upon learning of Hamilton's gift card program on March 23rd, Eric Hansen and his staff, at my request, quickly created a Mason gift card program called Mason Comes Together. That gift card program, which is different from the one we adopted today, is promoted on Mason's webpage. On Thursday, March 26th, I called member Stricula to talk about the previous council meeting in March. And during that call, based upon my questioning, member Stricula revealed the basic outline of the MAID CDC proposal and his proposal for the ordinance, set forth in Ordinance 43, but I had not seen it yet, and I'm not sure at what point in time it was drafted. After learning of the proposal and after the new electronic open meetings law was adopted on March 27th, I called a special session of council for Saturday, March 28th to discuss the proposal. Council and the public had 24 hours notice of this meeting, and because of that short notice, Vice Mayor Gilb was unable to attend that meeting. On March 27th, the president signed the Coronavirus Aid Relief Act and Economic Security Act. This act included the Payroll Protection Program funded with $350 billion to support small business loans. If the loans are used to pay payroll, rent, mortgage, interest, or utilities, the first 8 weeks of the money used for those purposes is forgiven. So a lot happened on the 27th, and there's been a lot to learn for all of us in a short amount of time. The March 27th special council meeting I called was convened at 11:03 on Saturday, March 28th, and concluded at 12:34 p.m. After almost 90 minutes of discussion, I chaired the meeting as mayor and gave all members an opportunity to speak as long as they wished. As the chair of the meeting, I did not express an opinion about the proposal, but remained neutral as required by the rules. The only substantive comment I made was to ask if council would be interested in offering a small business bridge loan program to advance sums covered by the PPP portion of the CARES Act, its payroll protection plan, while those businesses waited to receive their PPP funding. That is, I suggested a short-term loan program advance to our small businesses PPP funding, which we anticipated they would apply for and obtain, and which would be forgiven as specified in the PPP. The purpose of that loan advance was not to increase the debt of small businesses, but to provide them with funds sooner than those funds could be obtained through the PPP. And the idea was that those we advanced PPP funds to would pay the advance sums back to Mason after they received those funds. That was the proposal I was suggesting for council to consider as a possibility on March 28th. At the end of this special meeting on March 28th, I called for another special meeting of council to occur at the earliest possible time to continue to address the MAID CDC proposal and the ordinance 43, and to hear directly from the CDC and our Director of Finance, Joe Riegelsberger. Subsequently, I set that special meeting for March 30th at 4 p.m. At the March 30th meeting, which was a special council work session, which commenced at 4 p.m., Ordinance 43 was proposed, and a proposal was made by the Maid CDC and Ordinance 43 was introduced. It was discussed at length by council and representatives of the CDC for almost 3 hours. A motion for consideration was made near the end of the meeting. The meeting ended around 7:01 p.m. I asked questions of the CDC, but tried to refrain from expressing an opinion about the ordinance at that time. Ordinance 43 was read by title only as permitted by a 5-to-1 vote of council. I voted to read the entire ordinance to the record so that the public would be informed of its actual content. The ordinance stipulated that Mason was to give the CDC $500,000 to be used as direct recovery support for Mason's small businesses pursuant to an attached service agreement the city manager was authorized to enter with the CDC. That service agreement stipulated that the city provided funds were to be used to primarily for payroll purposes to keep people employed and or sole proprietors. Thus, Ordinance 43 as originally drafted was redundant and overlapped with the same payroll protection enacted by the CARES Act. While council voted on March 30th to require a second reading of 43, we waived the minimum 6-day period for the first and second reading of the ordinance. As I was working to set the next special council meeting at a time convenient to all members, which I intended to set on Friday, April 3rd of that same week, members Chance, Nelson, and Stricula later on March 30th exercised their power under Mason's charter to call a special council meeting for April 1st at 11 a.m. to vote on Ordinance 2020-43, less than 48 hours after it had been tabled. On April 1st, council met again on Ordinance 43, commencing at 11 a.m. Council first met in executive session from 11:05 to 12:03 and then reconvened until the meeting was adjourned at 12:57 p.m. A motion was made to table 43. The motion was debated by council and then passed in a 4-3 vote. The 4 proponents of the motion to table all expressed support for helping Mason small businesses, but asked for a reasonable period to study the issue properly, particularly in light of the CARES Act and the fact that Ordinance 2020-43 is redundant of the CARES Act because the primary purpose of 43 was stated to pay the same payroll covered by the CARES Act payroll protection program. Member Honorlaw on April 1st stated that he cared about Mason's small businesses and noted that he was a small business owner too. He did not say that he opposed helping Mason's small businesses, but said, quote, "We should not duplicate efforts," alluding to the CARES Act, or waste limited resources. He said council needed, quote, "time to take a careful, appropriate approach to this matter," end quote, and said that we, quote, "will do so as soon as we can," end quote. Vice Mayor Gilb summarized the small business assistance provided by the CARES Act and said that council should take that act, quote, "into consideration before we pass any legislation to help our small businesses," end quote. Vice Mayor Gilb did not oppose helping Mason's small businesses. He only said that council should carefully review the CARES Act in doing so. Member Bradburn said that he wanted to help Mason's small business community. He said, quote, "We know a lot of you are hurting, so are we. We know a lot of you feel helpless and can't find any help right now, but help is on the way," end quote. Member Bradburn added that, quote, "We need to stay calm, to not attack each other, and to take the time and care to make reasoned and good decisions, end quote. He concluded by stating, quote, "We can act carefully and will do so as soon as possible," end quote. I stated that I wanted to support Mason small businesses with a larger program than the one proposed by the MAID CDC, which could make a real difference for our small businesses and would not simply be a gesture. I then referred Ordinance 43 to Mason's Finance and Economic Development Committees, which met on April 3rd at 11 a.m. and 12 p.m. respectively. During those meetings, we discussed the creation of a much larger fund than $500,000 to help our small businesses to be used to help them in the short term, the longer term, and the much longer term to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. We discussed having this program operated through Mason's Economic Development Department, which has been responsible for billions of dollars of business investment and growth in Mason. Those committees did not finish their work on April 3rd, but requested additional information from city staff, which they were to obtain over the next week. Thus, far from being against anyone helping our small businesses has ever been, I'm sorry, let me start that one over. Far from being against helping our small businesses, as has been maliciously, recklessly, and falsely asserted to smear me, even by some council members of this council, and even into two WLW radio programs that flagrantly defamed me. I suggested a city-run program with far more funding and a broader, deeper impact on local businesses and much more help to them with metrics crafted by the city's economic development department. Somehow my proposal of much more help for small businesses was magically reinterpreted as a proposal of no help at all. Despite the tabling of Ordinance 43 on April 1st, so that it could be examined with more care by the Finance and Economic Development Committees.
Excuse me, what is the point of this? I don't understand. Are we just reiterating what happened in the last meetings? I mean, people can watch these meetings.
Please mute your microphones.
I'm going to call the meeting.
No,
We do
you
a 5-minute rule.
Chair, and you do not have the authority to do that right now. Please
Sure I
mute
do.
your phones.
I'd like to call the meeting. Do I have the ability to do that, Jeff?
Despite the tabling of 2020-43
Excuse me, I'd like to have our attorney respond if you're able to call the meeting.
more care
I am.
by the Finance and
A
Economic.
motion to adjourn can be made at any time, as it
I-
had been at prior meetings. It takes 4 votes for that to happen.
Well, I know I don't have it because, well, we all know. So go ahead.
Thank you.
I'd like to make the motion to adjourn.
I second that.
It's not a debatable motion, so you can move immediately to a roll call vote.
Councilmember Chance,
Yes, please.
Councilmember Bradburn,
No.
Councilmember Stricula,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gelb,
No.
Councilmember Hunterlaw,
No.
Mayor Grossman,
No.
Councilmember Nelson.
Absolutely.
Well, I don't believe that received sufficient affirmative votes. So meeting is not adjourned.
I still have the floor. I will continue. I'm getting close to the end. That makes you feel any better. All right, despite the tabling of Ordinance 43 on April 1st, so that it could be examined with more care by the Finance and Economic Development Committees, and so that those committees could also examine a much larger plan proposed by me to help Mason's business communities, members Chance, Nelson, and Stricula again called a special council meeting for April 3rd at 4:15 p.m. to vote on Ordinance 43. This meeting was called even though it was premature, contrary to the tabling of that matter on April 1st, and inconsistent with the referral of the ordinance to the Finance and Economic Development Committees. Our law director informed council in writing prior to the meeting that the only matter which could be addressed was a motion to untable or take off the table Ordinance 43, which was a non-debatable motion. The motion to take it off the table failed, and the meeting was properly adjourned pursuant to our rules. Note that a motion to adjourn takes precedence over the other motions and required a roll call, just like we experienced just now. Members Nelson and Chance interrupted with loud, inappropriate, sarcastic outbursts and refused to follow the rules, saying they were being silenced. At the law director's instructions, we continued with the roll call and of the precedent motion to adjourn. I followed the rules as I was bound to do and as our parliamentarian and law director instructed me to do. So as not to miss another opportunity to defame and smear me, the next deceitful story disseminated at this point was that I prevented council discussion on Ordinance 43 at the April 3rd special meeting of council. Nothing could be further from the truth. I followed Robert's rules and the instructions of our council parliamentarian and law director. Moreover, we held 3 meetings prior to April 3rd on this ordinance. Meetings were held on March 28th, March 30th, and April 1st, and it was discussed for about 5 hours at those meetings. No one has been kept from talking about Ordinance 2020-43. While I cannot begin to comment on all the lies and falsehoods about this matter, it's not true that the line item in our financial statements denominated as Economic Sustainability Fund is a fund set up to help Mason small businesses. That was another false claim made by proponents of Ordinance 43 and their plan to fund the CDC with seed money. The Mason Economic Sustainability Fund was established by our
Mayor,
city.
that's another false accusation. You can't say that. It's another false accusation. If you're going to say facts, say facts. I didn't.
Okay.
It's another false
Can
accusation.
you just be done?
You do not have the floor. I have the floor.
I understand, but I'm not going to let you sit there and argue about falsehoods being said about you and then you're saying them. It's just not, that's not, I mean, that doesn't make it right. I mean,
You'll have a chance. The proponents of this ordinance and their, wait, I'm sorry, I already got that one. The Mason Economic Sustainability Fund was established by our city manager and finance director a number of years ago as a savings account to fund and support Mason's provision of public services in case we lost one or more of our major companies. That is, it was a fund to secure the city of Mason if we lost a significant portion of our earnings tax income. The concern related to the possible loss of one of our major companies like P&G. While this fund is unencumbered and can be used for other purposes, it is false to say that it was set up for Mason small businesses in case of an economic emergency. A radio commentator who apparently did not confirm the veracity of those false claims about this fund or my proposals to help Mason small businesses even went so far as to claim that I have acted criminally in not distributing this fund to Mason small businesses. I'm not in control of the fund, and it was not for Mason small businesses. The factual assertion that I committed a crime related to this fund is baseless and defamatory. The CDC recently elaborated on their real purpose for Ordinance 43, or one of their purposes for Ordinance 43, in a letter dated April 10th, sent to me and the rest of council. They claimed that in the letter that they wanted to use the $500,000 as a pay it forward fund, meaning that any sums given by them to Mason small businesses were to be returned to the CDC after the companies that received the funding returned to economic health. Hence, they are treating the grant sort of like a bridge loan, but not really, as the return of the donation appears to only be asked for but not required. So that summarizes where we are and what has happened over the last 2 weeks. And as you can see, we have been very busy related to this matter. If you would like to respond to any of my statements, you need to go one at a time and raise your hand. I'll call you as quickly as we can. Councilmember Chance.
Mine's real quick. At the bottom of my shirt, it will say people over politics, precisely what I'm talking about right now. That was terrible.
I wish you had chosen people over politics when you were on that radio show program. I find that statement to be ironic and unfortunate. You have not demonstrated.
Why don't we go out? Why don't we go out and we can take a poll of the citizens of Mason again, right? Where we had 1,000 signatures within 6 hours. Let's talk about people over politics or business over politics. We had 1,000 signatures in 12 hours. It's a shame that you decide to play games and then read some coin written statement that has a lot of attorney jargon in it. Good job.
Anyone else?
I'll make the motion to adjourn again.
Is there a second to the motion to adjourn?
I second.
Call the roll, please.
Sorry, Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn,
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula,
yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb,
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw,
Yes.
Mayor Grossman.
Yes. We are.
Thank you, Jason.